This is the worst podcast on the internet, and we're slightly late. I was here. Our guest is coming and doing a great job arriving. I think there was some timing confusion, but he'll be here shortly. But while we do that, we got to pay the bills and do what we need to do. So first, vetdna.com for all of your testing needs. Use code SHITHAPPENS for $5 off the crypto panel. And you're going to need it tonight, brother, because we're doing all the weird Python species. So Nido, Sunshine, and Crypto. Visit them. Ral. Thank you, Chad. Other sponsors. Shane Kelley, Small Town Xotics. Fine Purveyor of Ball Pythons. Leopard Geckos. Future Boas. And I don't know. I think that's it. Future Boas. Check him out on his Husbandry Pro store, which is the coolest way to buy snakes these days. Powerhouse Pythons, Pacific Northwest provider of Gopher Cocoa, ball pythons, rodents. He's getting into leopard geckos and some other stuff. Check him out. Thank you for sponsoring. Bravo Zulu, female veteran-owned ball python breeder who has a really nice website now, bravozulupythons.com. So you can browse around without being confused by everything else on Morph Market. There are 40,000 other ball pythons. We don't want to be confused by choice. There's too much choice in this world. Websites. Websites is the future, probably. It feels like the odds all over again. BNS Reptilia. Chris has an ungodly shit ton of snakes on deck, and all of them are cute and fun. Lots of weird Pituophis, and I know you need them in your life. You know you need them in your life. So you might as well just commit to knowing that you need to go to his Instagram and browse around and say, hey, Depe Jani? Yes, please. That's what I wanted this whole time. That's what I want this whole time. That and Cape Gophers. Fuck me, Cape Gophers. Anyway, Gray Family Snakes. Fine family fun activities of breeding ball pythons. Mostly VPI, Pie, Desert Ghost stuff. But, you know, if you want to support normal, reasonable, wholesome-ish humans in this hobby and not whatever else is going on around here, Gray Family Snakes. Check them out on the old Morph Market. And lastly, Stone Age Ball Pythons. He's a Pacific Northwest breeder as well. And he's got the most poppinest Instagram you've ever seen. So if you want to figure out how to get your Instagram on deck, you need to go to Stone Age Ball Pythons. Speak of the devil. There he is.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, I think I confused you with like the Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. I didn't pay attention when I copied it, and that's just what I went off of.
You can't trust women ever to know what they're doing.
Well, then you can't trust a guy to pay attention, right?
Yeah, I usually do the Instagram as like Eastern time because then everybody can like subtract 1, 2, 3 or whatever for themselves. Good. Okay. But yeah, I'm Central, so I'm confused already also. So we were double confused. Thank you for making it, though. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. All right, last quick note for like housekeeping. I did cancel next weekend's auction because if people haven't heard, living under a rock, Sal Gomez's medical emergency. I don't know if you heard about this, William. He was hit by a car while doing a triathlon.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's horrific, and he's a great guy. But he's gonna have his own charity auction on YouTube next week, and I still don't know the times yet. So instead of like competing with a charity auction, I'm just like, spend your money on the charity auction, please.
Right.
Yeah, and then this is like the 5th medical emergency this month, so I think we're a little bit auctioned out. But we can still do their auctions. We should do them, but I don't need to do like, I don't know, a normal sales auction. Fuck me. Please support them. I did put everybody's like GoFundMe's and stuff. There's like 6 of them now. I don't know. We're just having like the worst luck in the hobby currently. I don't know. What do you think about the human condition? I don't know.
Yeah, sounds like I don't know. Just people getting hurt. I don't know. It's unfortunate, that's for sure. Especially seeing people I haven't heard Chris Eaton and shoot. When's the last time? I don't really listen to this. Well, I guess he does the comedy podcast one still, but I don't really listen too much to that one. I'm used to more of the snake related ones. I know Chris got hurt and then Gomez, but who else? Anyone? I can't remember.
So Cue Balls, his son was in an accident.
Yeah, okay.
Impeccable Geckos, his son was in an accident,
Holy
like a
cow.
car crash. And Seth from Bankrupt Reptiles was in a motorcycle accident.
Wow. You're not kidding. Holy cow.
I'm just like, we can't catch a break. Holy shit. I don't even know. I feel bad for everybody equally. And then I'm like, this is like a weird time of year. So people are like maybe sort of snake rich and money poor. So they're putting up snakes. And I'm like, great. But man, it's been brutal.
Yeah. Well, the good part about the hobby is it's pretty good about uniting when it comes to stuff like this, you know?
Yeah. We need it. 100%.
Right.
We didn't have a chance to talk, but before we get into like the main topic, could you convince me or unconvince me to vend in the RBC St. Louis? I was thinking about it, but then I was like, do I want to fill out their awful tax form to vend in Missouri?
I don't know. You have a bit of a diversity, so you would. It's hard to say how well you'll do. I don't even know anyone who's, as of now, who's doing it. No one's told me anything about it. I do it because I live fairly close to it, so it'd be like
9 hours for me. So it's got to be like worth it.
Hey, you know what? I was disappointed. This was probably March. I went to an Oklahoma show and I was expecting to see you, and you weren't there.
Where did you go, to Tulsa?
Yeah, the Show Me one. I think it was Tulsa, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like a 1 day at the like Broken
Arrow.
No,
it was a 2-day show.
That okay. So I skipped that one because the one before that, El Reno, I made like $150. And that was doing Handy J's in the back of the fucking the door was 300 people, and I'm like, you guys need to prove to me you can bring a bigger door than 300 people, or I'll never come in again. So that one was good, I guess. So
I did pretty well at the Oklahoma one I went to, but you know, I don't know. When I walked around, a lot of people said they didn't do too well, but people need to look at their tables a little bit more subjectively, I guess, because they look at it and they think that these double recessive projects, you know, a leopard double het clown pied or leopard double het, whatever it is, or let's just say it was a lot of 1 or 2 display cases of a lot of double hets of brown snakes, and almost everybody at that show had them. And I go, I don't mean to sound like an asshole, but you guys, that's kind of why, you know, people who are walking through that door aren't looking to be the next Justin or Ozzy or whoever, you know. They're looking for a pet or maybe to start some sort of breeding project. So not spend whatever it was. They weren't even really all that expensive. Most of them were just, you know, fairly average prices, you know, paycheck snakes. But, I mean, everyone had them, you know. So there was no,
Yeah, I don't know. We all sort of get into the like perpetually online world where we think other people value the same things we do.
Right.
And like the normal human who walks in does not give 2 shits that's head for whatever. They do
Right.
not care. They're buying with their eyeballs for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it depends on the show you go to too, because I mean, you know, I told you over the phone, or not over the phone, over message, that Schaumburg, a lot of people didn't do too well. A lot of the ball python people, I guess, in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my buddy Dave was telling me, he's like, you know, he had a lot of the big ball python people starting to ask, you know, hey, is there something else I should get into? And, you know, I think it's easy for him to say, yeah, you know, there's boas, there's all this, but I go, there's so much more than just getting into a different species. I could
Mm-hmm.
tell you from experience, when you get different species, unless they have a prominent place on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
chances are 90% of the people aren't going to know much or anything about that species. You know, that's something
Right.
I've noticed. Like white-lipped pythons, like I'll bring a white-lipped python to a show, and people, they either assume it's wild caught, because I'm dumb and I keep forgetting I just don't ever put captive bred.
Mm-hmm.
I guess because I try to get people to interact with me by just asking, you know. But most people aren't going to know what that water pythons, a lot of these patternless snakes, you know, they're just. I get lucky maybe with like carpet pythons because they're not quite that unknown. You know,
Mm-hmm.
most people have an idea of what a carpet python, especially if you're my generation, you probably grew up watching like Steve Irwin or something, so you were at least somewhat familiar with carpet pythons to an extent.
So you think if like a person wants to, it's a weird way to say it, but like launch a species, like they're a person is trying to get into a species and they're like, I love it, I'm committed to it. You think they should like do the social media groundwork of explaining the husbandry, explaining why it's cool for a couple of years and like build up interest and then take it to a show? Like, does it permeate enough if one person's doing it?
You know, and it's a species by species basis too, because I mean, look at what Garrett did with like the super door stuff. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I remember 10, 12 years ago, I had buddies trying to give me those snakes. You know, here, you could pay me later. You know, $100, $150, whatever it was. Now it's like, last year or two, I bought a few pure locality stuff, and it was like 10 times that now or more, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
well, he built his own market,
but
right?
But he built the species up. He, you know, explained to you why this animal's cool or would be cool for certain people. And Garrett did something very unique, I think, compared to at least ball python people. I don't know about boa and corns or the colubrid community in general, but boas, I don't see too many people do this. But Garrett did something kind of unique where he I don't know if it's still like this, because it sounds like the retic community's going to hell, you know, just, but I mean, back before it went to hell, he really tried to unite the pet keepers and the breeders, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's you know, because you see the ball python community, the pet keepers and breeders are always fighting. There is seemingly no getting along with a lot of them. And I think that's what I thought was pretty unique. And another thing too is retics have all those color morphs, you know. No matter how much I like wild type animals, you got to take in consideration that color morphs, mutations of any kind, really draw and attract long-term interest in a lot of species. You know, I can have white-lipped pythons, all these rare species of pythons, but you can only produce so many Savu Pythons or Maclot Pythons before people are like, okay, it's just a Maclot Python. It's just a whatever normal wild type it is, you know. It's unfortunate. So like, if you're into like with me, if you're into like the wild type stuff, it's hard to just do. If I just did white-lipped python, like just southern or northerns or something, if I just did them, you could have a market, but that market, if you get it too big, well, there's only so many people who are going to want white-lipped or should keep white-lipped pythons. You know, most people, not most, but some people would end up killing them or messing them up, doing something that will kill the animal. So that margin is going to be a lot smaller. So if you do wild types, you might be better off, like, instead of just doing maclodi do the whole liasis complex. If you're into the wild stuff, like I said, that's why morphs kind of open up this floodgate of giving you opportunity to work with one species. That's why ball pythons are so prolific in like the market, because there is so many different looks of them, and they really are a perfect snake too. I worked with most python species, and any non-snake person, a ball python's a pretty good easygoing animal. It's not too fast. It's just the right size where if it got out, you'd never see it again. Like I remember at a show, there was a lady, she's like, I don't want a snake anything over 3 foot, nothing bigger than 3 foot max. And I said, the only species I work with that stay in that size range is Antaresia, like a lot of your Stimsons and Children's and Pygmies. But I told her, I go, they're kind of more colubrid-like. They're somewhat quick moving, and they every once in a while they get that like finger biting, kind of vibe. They want you handle them after a while, and they kind of want to try a fingertip or a hand, after a while.
You don't know until you try, or a couple times.
But as soon as she's like, "Ooh, that thing's moving a little quick," because I showed her in person at a show. She was a local person, and she saw it was moving kind of quick. And she's like, I don't know about that. And this snake was only like 10 inches long. It wasn't a very big snake. But then she looked at a younger ball python, and she goes, well, that looks perfect because it just sits there like a bump on a log, and it doesn't move very quick. So that's why it's hard. It's really hard to beat ball pythons, especially when it comes to new people, man. Really, really hard to beat. Care might be a little different. Like colubrids are by far going to, especially when you live in North America, colubrids are going to be by far the best. But it's just that fast movement is just something that seems to really give people the willy-nillys and stuff usually at first.
Yeah, and I obviously want people to have diversified collections and tables because I think it makes for a better show and you're a better keeper and all kinds of reasons. But I don't think ball pythons should be like demonized. Like they're obviously popular for a reason, and a lot of people are like fuck ball python. I'm not in that camp. I have them. They're fine. I was just like, like this is a good question. How like. We'll go through like different species that would be good candidates for like a ball python person to add in a bit. But like the question is like, should they? Does it fit into their program, their room, their setup? And like, so like that's the real question. Because a lot of people are just like, I just need to add it so I can make money.
Right. Well, you know what I think it does too, and it's why I've decided to kind of go more the species route. Is a lot of people are wanting to do more of the like the blue-eye Lucy stuff or the pieds, they call them the paycheck snakes and stuff like that because it's usually quote unquote easy money, but sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But I decided, well, why would I compete with so many other people with that when I could just put that effort towards like a different species, a species that is appropriate, Not
right, where every member of the species is like equally valuable and rare, hypothetically. Right. So it doesn't matter if you hit pied or not. You just it was born and it exists.
Right.
Well, it's more expensive.
And like I said though too, when it comes to different species, if anyone's looking to try them, you really got to do your research. At least you ain't got to be an expert in the species, but ball python people. And I don't mean to sound like an asshole, but some ball python people almost can care less about the species. At least that's the vibe I get from a lot of people. And I go, dude, ball pythons are such an interesting animal. Like I said, I've kept a bunch of different pythons. There is quite literally no other python that does what ball pythons do. You may not think it's a cool thing they do, but the fact that they, it's the only python that balls up. It's the only one. There might be ones that imitate it once in a while, but I was telling some people I've had baby ball pythons because all my tubs are see-through. You could see through in the tubs, and I've walked through baby tubs, and you would hear a loud bang, and that thing sucked into a ball so fast because I just startled it. I just saw a big shadow right in front of it, and they'll do it all the way up to juvenile age, you know, as far as being able to suck into a ball relatively quick. And it's like, you got to like really scare them too. Like, I'm not promoting people jumping and scaring the shit out of their ball pythons, but it's pretty interesting when you see it. Cause I mean, most pythons, they either turn and run or they stand and fight, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what makes ball pythons just more interesting than people are willing to admit. But I don't know, just and like I said, that's the one thing. If you're going to get in a different species, like Jessica, that's why I was really drawn to you guys' podcast. You guys who genuinely are interested in animals, and like you do more research than I even do, for sure. Like I hear you talk your boas, your colubrids, you know, very well educated.
Thank you. I try. I think what ball python people mess up when they switch is they slot it in, but then they like feed it like a ball python. Like you break a liasis feeding it like a ball python.
Yeah.
You break a insular boa feeding it like a ball python. Holy rings for days.
Oh yeah. No, that's actually probably the biggest thing too, is the way people feed. But the thing is, you don't have to feed ball pythons like that. Ball pythons are just good at, for whatever reason, they're just better at handling it, you know?
Yeah. I think they just tolerate our what we've chosen to do to them, though, the process better.
Yeah. But, you know, because everyone talks about that 1,000-gram wall, and I'm just like, well, I think it's because you're trying to force them to get to a size that they probably wouldn't naturally get to so quickly, you know? I mean, that's just a guess. No one knows unless you actually, you know, studied these things in the wild. But to me, in my mind, there has to be a reason why because I tell you what, my ball pythons, my big females, some of my really big females might be lucky to get 6 or 9 meals a year. I mean, but they get giant rats. It's kind of more of the Vin Russo method. You feed them for a short period of time, just really big meals, and that's usually all they get. And if they're not going to breed, then they might even eat 5 big meals, or maybe a few small meals. They eat whenever I remember. Because people always, you know, because there's this misconception that, if it has to eat every week or two, it needs to do it regardless. Well, if you keep doing that, well, most people, I don't know, they equate bigger size to bigger eggs or more eggs or whatever. But I've seen plenty of times where you just get a gigantic ball python that lays you 4 giant eggs or 5 giant eggs. I've had plenty of 1,500-gram girls lay 9 eggs, but they're just itty bitty eggs.
Yeah.
You know, I'm more in the I'd rather have them smaller than bigger. Ball pythons, all of them. There's something to say about,
even in males, usually the males that are bigger, I feel like could breed like 20 females without ultrasounds.
Well, yeah, so that's the caveat. If you're gonna do that, absolutely. If you're gonna breed to a bunch of males, then you need to have a bigger male, otherwise you'll roast a little male doing that. But yeah, no, you're totally right. When it comes to multiple males, or males breeding multiple females,
yeah,
sure.
Like I guess it's still like polygenic, because obviously multiple genes control like adult size, and then there's some sort of nurture influence because you're like the amount of food you feed them. But the males that were from big lines and just naturally got big, and I didn't like size restrict them on purpose, I just find that they're absolute studs, you know, absolute units, and they don't care. They could go off food for 9 months and not die because they don't care. They're just like, this is totally fine. I'm just living my best life being a dominant male. And because they have male combat, you know, like maybe that makes them feel dominant, you know, like maybe we're preventing them from letting their testes inform their little brains that they're like a dominant male and they can produce lots of sperm, because they don't get to, if we let them combat safely.
I let them combat.
Okay.
I'm bad. Not bad, but I was always if I had a male that was lazy, I'll just throw 2 males if they're comparable size and obviously the right genes, like head or visual, you know, or if it's a visual female, I'll put a het and visual. Then it's, you know, if I'm going for that route. But I'll put multiple males in, and males, you'd be surprised. I don't get too. I had males stay together all season with another male, and they both breed. I used to think it was follicular development. I always thought if the females start building, okay, because I've had some males where they were fine with each other all the way up to the female had a certain size follicles, then they would start fighting with each other. But then I've had others that would go all the way through and didn't have a problem. I've had.
Do you think like that one of them or both were subordinate, or they felt like they were equals? Did you ever notice a trend in size or something?
Well, like I've been saying, my males are typically pretty small. Like their first year, they're usually really small. So I kind of wonder if there's a size, like if your male's bigger, because that's another misconception is most people think, female pythons get bigger than males. There's only a few species where the males actually stay smaller, and that's you can dictate it on if the animal combats. If the animal combats, then typically, obviously, the bigger male is going to win. So the male has a reason to be bigger. Now, if there isn't, and there's more communal breeding, like say with condas, southern rocks, diamonds in them, then you get more of that, multiple males trying to move in on one female type of deal. And usually those males are smaller. So, I kind of wonder, because I do keep my males typically smaller. I've never really thrown a tiny male in with a big male. Well, I've done it by accident, but not knowing it was a female or it wasn't a female. But yeah, no, that one instant I had that, it was a big ass male, and all I would hear was bang, bang. And you were like, oh, that's not good. But, sometimes, I'm not going to lie, I've had females do that too, where they'll almost like a type of it's not combat, but they shove them very similar to a combat. It's more
it's like a body check.
It's like a retic would do or something like that, where they try to check you off of them. But I've had them get real aggressive, like females that just want nothing to do with that male that season for whatever reason. I find that unique. I've had one female, she would buck this male and just didn't want nothing to do with him. Put a different male in, perfectly fine with him. And this is ball pythons too. And then the following season, they were perfectly fine. She was trying to fight with, she accepted the following season. So
I think that's something
that really interesting.
Critically under discussed is their sort of interpersonal lives. Because I've had females body check males, and males body check females because they're like, ew, what the fuck is it? Right. And then I even probed her. I was like, damn, am I dumb? Nope.
Definitely
a female. They just nope.
Yep, no proven breeder females. And they were just, whatever reason, they just didn't want that particular male or whatever the reason is. So I've seen a lot of experiment. I've had a lot of experiments with ball pythons when it comes to stuff like that. But
Lisa brought up that it's not always true. Females are smaller because of how much energy it takes to reproduce. So, what makes the gender size dimorphism happen is always multivariant. It's always, is there male combat? Is the female oviviparous? So there's a strong selective pressure for a certain body size with each reproductive event. Sometimes there's habitat issues where they're actually doing resource partitioning and the female's eating one food item, the males are eating another food item. So it is multivariant, but I think I'm a person who does do male terminal size controlling with food controlling. I'll be honest, but when I stumble into a male who's big in ball pythons anyway, I'm damn, he can really, spread the love around,
right,
without a problem. So
right.
But can we all have male ball pythons, or should we all have male ball pythons that need a CB70? No, I don't think that's strictly necessary.
That's kind of the reason why I keep them small, is just not to have them in as big of a tub as if they were, the size of the female. Right. So that's the only real, with ball pythons anyways, when it comes to other species, I like to just purposely keep the male small so it's easier to say, okay, there's the male. So I don't have to sit there and, because having Lisa will know, having to have to probe or pop a male white lip is something I don't want to do if it's the same size, or I end up probing a female and got to go grab the male instead, So yeah, so that's why I try to purposely with, especially, similar looking pythons, try to keep the male purposely smaller, for as long as I can, I don't, who knows, in 10, 15 years, they'll probably be closer to, it's closer in size, but I try to hold them off for as long as I can.
Yeah. I'm not sure like if it either way is wrong. It's just it is interesting. Like the choices we make. Obviously, like, but boas, 90% of the sexual dimorphism for size is 100% man-made by me. Because I don't want to also have 6-foot enclosures for the males, but they would probably be basically the same size if I wasn't enforcing that. But they also don't need that. And, their life is better if they have a bigger cage relative to their size.
Right.
So I do that. But
yeah.
Whoopsie. Okay. I don't know.
Well, honestly, though, they'll live longer, too, I mean, if they less calories, the size, their heart's not having to work as hard, longevity, if you keep the animals smaller, it is a thing. There's a reason why you don't see too many retics, 20-foot retics that live into their 20s and 30s,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's a lot of work eating food if you don't have
like
chewing teeth and arms to tear it apart. So it takes a lot of effort. So real quick, let's talk about like feeding large prey items to female ball pythons and still getting them to go. Are you talking about like a large rat or a jumbo rat?
Somewhere. It depends on the female. If she's like that 1400 to 1800, it's probably a bit really big medium or a large, extra large. And then some of my even my real big females, they're still not. I thought they were big, and then I weighed them, and they were like 25. I don't even know if I have a ball python that's over 3,000 grams. And I have some 10 or 12-year-old ball pythons. And I'll feed them those ones I'll feed sometimes smaller retired breeders, whatever you guys would consider, maybe not quite jumbo, not those big mammoth looking rats, when
they're like guinea pig sized and shaped.
not quite that big. You can, but that's the joy. That's a good part about pythons in general. For the most part, they're able to choke down, a lot of those larger prey items. As long as you don't, like I said, if you fed them like that every 2 weeks, then you'd have a problem. Or they just would quit eating. If it's a ball python, it would just quit eating. If you start feeding it like that. So.
But I think a lot of people struggle with like, I need to make 1 trillion little food items. But if they knew that they could just switch to one big item once a month and still have production, hypothetically, maybe they would feel better or save money. It's more expensive to feed 4 smalls than 1 large.
Right.
Like on a per gram basis. And then the snake may live longer because it doesn't have to like oscillate up and down its digestive tract over and over again. So
how much does it get triggered though because some of these people sound like they feed almost weanling rats almost, and I don't even know, would that even cause any sort of significant, I don't remember what they said the size, what size it caused, or what size would trigger it, or is it any size would trigger it?
I think it's any size because they like almost fully atrophy their stomach lining all the way back. But if they are continuously revved up, it doesn't go back down. So like there's like an argument for like a seasonal feeding paradigm for ball pythons where you're like blast them like every 7 days and it's never revving down.
Right.
And then give them a break for 4 months or something over the winter on purpose, like willfully, before they choose to give themselves a break, which they do all the time when you feed them too much. So I don't know. It is interesting. But my problem is like, a boa or a retic or a white lip will just be like, let's fucking go.
Oh yeah. They don't get it. They just, they'll just keep eating themselves. So they're, the quote max size or potential size of that species,
Oh my God. And then they die right away, like 6 years old.
And my thing, my thing, do you really want to deal with like I know I do. I wouldn't want to. I'm sure Lisa wouldn't either, but I wouldn't want to deal with a 9-foot white-lip python that wants to nail me in the face. That just sounds horrible. Absolutely horrible. You know?
Yeah, and it's in like a top cage, so it's like hanging down, trying to eat you. Hell yeah.
But that's where some of them are too, right above my head.
Challenge accepted.
Right.
All right, and then like the last like question is like, when we talk about these different species, like I think there should be a difference between a good investment species and like a good pet species. And maybe sometimes they have like a Venn diagram overlap, but sometimes now that's like a great investment species doesn't necessarily like, it won't ever have like a big market penetration because it's
right.
Most people fucking kill it or whatever. So it's not actually that good. So
those
are the, like the context.
That's kind of like that I always tell people when they get into different species, and a lot of I'm sure you've seen this, where a lot of the old school people are reluctant to give advice on how to breed it or take care of it or whatever, if they know you're going to be breeding it or whatnot. But it's one of those, it's like, I hate to say this, but most of the time you could give everyone the layout of how you did exactly how you did it, how they should do it, whatever it is. And most of the time they're going to default right back to what they were used to doing. And it's just easier to do. Just default back to how you would usually do something, you know, feed it every week, feed it every 2 weeks or whatever it is. Keep it hot 24/7, you know? So that's always, it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. I mean, I could call people stupid for it all they want, but it's not going to, you know, then you're just the bad guy, you know?
Yeah, sometimes it's almost like just like the rote memorization of how they got in or whatever they learned to do to come in. They have a hard time processing. Obviously, they're all adults. They can think about it, but like they're like, "Fuck, I just feel like I need to feed the room today." So they have to like spend a couple of years being like,
"Right." Well, it's like, isn't it like, was it 66 days of doing something before it becomes habit or something?
All right,
so it's just one of those or something.
We need to execute order 66 on
something. It was something like that, but I mean
21 days.
So it was something.
I hope it's 66 because that would be much more funny.
Right.
Sorry. All right, let's do it. So, Antaresia. My first question is, why aren't poplin spotted pythons more common or available since we have like a hypothetical import source? Or
well, I think they just started getting brought in as far as I'm sure they've been brought in before, but if they did, they probably got bred back into the Australian stuff because there is no that's such a clusterfuck. That whole somehow Stimson's children's and Western Stimsons are the same, but then you got Cape York spotteds and the New Guinea spotteds are different, but yet Papuan carpets and Darwins are the same. Well, there's genetically they're identical, seemingly identical, and then you got like water python, the Queenslands and the New Guineas are identical, and it's just silly. It just seems silly, but it is what it is. So
right, I was just thinking like because we have an import source, we could get Xanthics or wild caught. So if people wanted to like prepare their collection, but let's not talk about me. Let's talk about you. Which of Antaresia do you think a ball python person should buy, and why? You got to pick one-ish. No, you don't. There's no rules actually.
There's no. Well, two of the better ones, honestly, would be either your spotteds or the children's. As far as they're just the easiest to get started. Pygmy pythons are probably the prettiest. Well, westerns are probably one of the prettiest, I think, but they're a bit more of a pain to get started. Pygmy pythons are really hard to get started. I've heard some people say it takes 6 months to get them eaten, but once you get them eating, they're some of the meanest snakes I own. They'll eat the side of the tub. And my male and females are in V18 tubs, and they got more room than a ball python does in a CV70. I mean, quite a bit more room. So, I mean, they're small, but yeah, a pain in the ass to get started, you know.
You ever thought about like just breeding viper geckos or pictus geckos?
That's exactly what I thought about doing. Same thing with chondros too. I keep hearing these people talk about their prolapsing issues, and I kind of wonder, you know, pythons are never meant to digest milk, you know, and you feed them these pinkies loaded with milk, and I wonder if this is what's causing the issue. But no one really ever feeds lizard, you know. In this day of age, why? Well, I get why, because there's more viral transmission that can happen between, you know, squaw mates than there would be mammalian and reptiles. But if you got a good clean colony, and I don't know, I'm sure you could. Some like black-headed pythons are almost expensive enough that I'd almost justify breeding a group of bearded dragons just to feed them that.
But I think that's okay, right? That's what they're supposed to eat. If we're trying to give them the best life, why are we like making up jokes? I'm just like, you know, viper gecko, like no expense. No, sorry, Richard, you're in the chat. But like, viper geckos and pictus geckos. Pictus come out bigger, but viper geckos are like teeny tiny, like baby anole size.
Okay.
Like, and you could just delicately take that little shit and just drop it in there and just
let it happen.
This is how we have nice things. Is we think the work.
I think the one thing, the reason why I was kind of hesitant to do it was because rodents, for the most part, you could just drop in, and you know, you could drop in pretty quick and easy. A gecko, you know, depending on how fast that species is, you could have a colony going in your room if you weren't fast enough and closing the lid or anything. Unless I guess if you had it strike off the hemostats or something, or take it off hemostats, but I don't know.
Well, like vipers are terrestrial and pictus are terrestrial, so they can't. They can like half scale glass when they're young, but not really. They sort of fall off. So like that's why I was thinking of a terrestrial one, because it would have the shape and movement. But
yeah, I can see like some of those geckos. I was even thinking of some skink species, but I know skinks can be, depending on the species, can be pretty fast. So I'd be more nervous throwing something like a nulls and stuff like that, and just I could already see it just pop. I've done it with rats before too. You throw the rat in, it just pops right back out. So that's how it's not fast enough.
That's okay. Then it's like free range fruit feeders growing on your, you know, spiders or whatever in the corner, and then you just pluck them off. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
That's what I feed. That's what I do feed some of my adult Antaresia, my black-headed pythons, is those iguana lynx. I'll feed them either iguana lynx or maybe quail or some birds, you know, similar to reptiles as far as, you know,
like
body fat and all that. Yeah, so
do you have a hard time converting them, or?
No, they eat them fine. Black-headed python, Antaresia will eat almost anything. When you get them going, I mean, they'll eat your fingers. I'm not kidding. They'll eat almost anything, you know.
And then for the ball python people, do they have the king snake like tendency of just gnawing on exposed flesh like a rosy boa does?
Yeah, kind of. Like those, most of mine are as babies are pretty chill, but then it's like I had some as adults. They would hit this stage in life where you would handle them for a little while, and then you would start getting that constriction. Like it would start squeezing you more, and then shortly after that, you would start getting a curious head, kind of looking at your hand all cockeyed, like. And then it would just be a real slow, deliberate bite to kind of just try it.
Right.
So
it is funny because it's like you can watch their 3 brain cells working together.
They're like, by God, I think I can take this hand. like
from like a superficial look, I like that spotteds are more like the better contrast version, and so like you could play with like the depth of the contrast or making it darker or redder or whatever in general. And then but children's have T+ in the US, so
some of these morphs, it's probably just a matter of time, you know. You never know. Just when you think something is getting stagnant, all of a sudden, hey, this albino just popped out of nowhere.
Popped out of somebody's pants, you mean?
Right. Hey, you know, sometimes this stuff hides in people's shoes. there was a lady who went to Australia for vacation, and this happened years ago, and she went back home. I think it was Ireland or something, and she had a little spotted python in her shoe. Went through the flight and everything, and I go, wow, can't believe. Well, I guess they're so small. I mean, maybe it just didn't pick up on anything, because it was like a tiny little neonate,
Hopefully it went to a zoo at least.
Oh, they usually always, for the most part. I don't know if any they get. Usually there's someone they send them to, Paul Harris or someone like that, who generally gets all the good stuff first, and then us peasants get it later.
Richard says hetero. I can't read. Notia Benoe are better options. Partheno gecko. Yeah, I think it's more about like getting the cost per unit gecko down. So if it's Partheno, right. But like mornings, they're kind of not that cheap to make because they are Partheno too. But you like lose too many of them just running away and like sneaking out. So it definitely needs to be a terrestrial.
Right.
All right. So Antaresia is a yes. Some species of it, right?
Yeah, and like I said, it's just what's your tolerance on like just small. Like I said, I've said this before, but it's true. There's such a thing as it's so small it's intimidating. Yes. It kind of falls. Well, you deal with corn snakes. How big is a corn snake when it hatches, weight wise?
Unicorn fart. 3 grams. They're almost the same weight as
Holy
the pinkies
shit.
They eat.
No way. They're 3 grams when they hatch?
Holy cow. 4 grams.
Okay.
Pinky might be a gram or 2.
You would be an expert then, because you would be perfectly fine, because I think my Stimson babies are like 6 to 7 grams roughly.
Some of them, corn snakes are like surprisingly stretchy, so they're good at dealing with our feeder supply. But if they weren't stretchy, like they were a little king, like I don't know, what are the smaller kings, mole kings or something?
Yeah.
Then their mouths are smaller. I would have to I don't know, do something, because kings they don't stretch as much. They're more about like crushing and fighting. Yeah, I like Antaresia. My only thing is like the more polygenic variation that's in the wild and that we have access to, the better your chances are of like having morphs, having projects, having people be interested in them. So that's sort of one of the criteria that maybe they sort of fall down on a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lack of diversity and stuff. You don't get, you won't get all the different color variations. You're stuck with a limited gene pool, so you only got so many different looks you can go after. So yeah, that's the one downside with them. But I always tell people, I go, you never know. I don't know, as far as like what happens or what could happen. I don't hold up my hopes are never high though when it comes to Australia, but you just never know.
Yeah. It could happen. I don't know.
Right.
All right, let's do like Liasis maybe as a group.
A group. Oh, so
or just like go through like the most, like, because obviously like Duns, Macklots, Waters are cool, but some of them are bigger. So maybe a ball python person would be like, water python too big for me.
Water pythons aren't too bad. My female, she breeds in a CB70. She's probably only 4.5 feet. She's not, and then girth wise, she's probably only like half the girth of a ball python, a female, maybe even less than that. She's pretty small. She's not very big. And then my male, he's not much bigger than my female spotted python.
Okay, cool.
They're pretty small.
Maybe I was looking at broken ones on the internet, like ruined ones or overfed. Yeah, because olives can be kind of big.
But then you're like, those get pretty good size. I tell people if you want to retic like animal, I think olive pythons are really similar to retics, really similar, and I think they're a little cooler than retics personally. I think olive python, they're tough animals.
Shots fired.
They're tough animals. I think if you put a retic of equal size to an olive python, the olive python would eat the retic every time.
Lisa says I should get Dunai. I like Dunai too, but I like Savu's also, so I should get both. I guess is the answer.
Yeah, Dunai is just as variable. They're probably a bit more variable than the Savuensis, I think. A bit more with as far as different colors, but
do you have Dunai? I should probably be showing off pictures. I'm bad at
not yet. I tried to earlier in the year. I tried to get some imported, some guys over in Indonesia, but God, getting stuff from Indonesia is a real pain in the butt. That was no easy. It was easier to get Angolan pythons from Africa than it was trying to get Dunai from Indo. So, yeah. As far as looks go, though, if you like looks, Savu pythons, Maclots, those will probably be Dunai. I don't know. Dunai.
It's hard to search.
Yeah. Right. Get on Ryan Young's page. He's the only one I know who works at.
Here, I'll look. Keep talking.
But yeah.
I like that weird like calico effect that that group has, and the little speckles of black. Right. It's very attractive.
They could probably be line bred if you got in, like, especially I think Maclots probably have the most unique looks as far as, like, especially if you wanted a line breed. I'm sure you could get all, like, less freckles, more freckles, darker olive colors, lighter olive colors. I mean, you're limited because they don't have crazy colors, you know. There was a weird hypo-looking Maclot python years ago. Someone killed it, I think, but they were pretty unique, or it was pretty unique
killed
looking.
It. Are they as like, I don't know, like, what is their sensitivity to like humidity problems?
They're pretty hardy.
This group, okay.
They're tough. I'm talking killed it as far as just got it way too big, and then just I don't know how people manage to kill them. They just they either get it too big, feed it too much, or they heating problems, virus problems. You never know, and it's hard to get a straight answer with some of these people.
Right. I think like the ombre, like a blacktail crebo look, is very attractive. So yeah, I'm in.
They're cool, but they are sassy when they're babies. My adult female, she likes to whip me with her tail every time I put her away. She gets real wiry, and then as soon as I go to put her back, she'll give me a quick whip. As far as like leave me the fuck alone type of bitch slap me or something like that. So. But I mean, generally, that's only like a few. Most of my Lyasis stuff is pretty, relatively handleable, as long as they're not babies.
Chris says Apodora beats everything. We'll see. We haven't decided a winner yet.
Right.
And then
Apodora, yeah.
My Maclot has been surprisingly tolerant of both temperature and humidity fluctuations, even into the high 50s. That's what I'm talking about.
Yep.
The only problem is, like, would a normal human see that and be like, I want to buy that on a reptile show table as a baby,
I wonder if it's the attitude that just gets, because they'll pose. I've seen plenty of Macs that'll pose for you, babies. You come up near the glass and they'll pose for you. Because I never got, why do golden eyes and retics always get so much love and attention? And I'm talking just straight normal golden eyes that are just patternless, not albino or whatever. You'll see a lot of people with the golden eyes, but I'm just like, why don't you look at the Lyasis complex? They're naturally patternless animals that personally have better, I think, safer attitudes. They're either going to be assholes or they're not. Or, retic, you deal with the possible male issues, if they don't, going through a seasonal temperament, compared to Lyasis where they're either going to be mean or they're not, or you smell like food. That could happen too.
That's like a problem.
Food. Yeah. Then you might get a little muffed up.
All right, let's talk about white lips because we're here. We're in Lyasis. Do you think a ball python person is ready to buy a bunch of white lips and blow up the white lip market or something?
No, that would. Yeah, no, they're just too sensitive. They're just they're kind of like I hate calling them the poor man's Bolins, but they're not quite. I think Bolins might be a little hardier than they are, but no, I don't see a bunch of ball python people looking at those. They're just.
I think they are. That's why the prices went up during COVID.
Do they?
Like
Oh well, that's Lisa's high end black.
Oh, it's just Lisa.
I work with the low rent gold phases that people can get like tons of wild caught ones in, and people seemingly don't care about those. It's only the blacks, man.
I like the gold too. It's very, I don't know.
Oh, you don't have to lie to me. It's okay.
No,
it's okay.
I'm into all kinds of stupid shit. I have brown dirt snakes like Slowinski
right.
and I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm gonna convince anybody to buy brown dirt snakes from the Louisiana bayous. Nobody gives a shit, but I do.
So there's somebody. If you do, you got to always think there's some group of people out there that that are just needed to just be taught it. Make a YouTube video, make them famous.
I will. Right. What I like about them is like they're like a corn steak, but like much more reasonable. Like mentally, they're just like, this is my best life, so I'm living it. And they have like a weird like cat face, like their lip sort of divots down, so they look like an anime cat. Nobody cares, but I'm going to convince someone that this is like a great, standalone chill ass pet, and it's also a brown piece of shit.
Well, it would be a shame, and I think that's.
Thanks, buddy.
That's why I think it's important to keep this stuff going. Is otherwise, if you don't keep it going, or you don't inspire someone to take the helm when you're done with the hobby, then that species could die out to the hobby, and no one would know what it is then.
Yeah, I had a hard time. Not a hard time, but a conversation with a guy at a show. He was a gecko breeder. He's like, asked him if something on his table was one species. He's like, I haven't seen that fucking species in 5 years or whatever. And he's like, if it drops below $200, people stop breeding it, and then it basically stops existing.
Right.
So and I was like, damn, next time I see one, I'll buy it and send you some or something. So yeah, it's like the economics of the rare stuff is tough.
Right. Doesn't that always irritate you though when you have those people that say, man, I remember when they were $200 or I remember when these were more common. Then why didn't you do anything about it before they become either non-existent or rare? You know? But they either bitched about, now they're too expensive, or they got. I think the saddest one is when I hear people say, there's nothing you can do with them. What's the point of breeding them? And I go, to me, there is a point. There's no. People aren't going to know what they are. It's unfortunate, but people don't read books. People barely want to Google anything, So it's one of those, if they don't see it in a YouTube video or a show and have someone explain it to them, that's why I've been trying to tell people. I think the private sector of herpetoculture could do so much for conservation. It's unreal, but it just never gets promoted that way, or shown to people how it can be. Because I tell you what, there's stuff in herpetoculture that the zoos don't own or don't show. So it's not like you can rely on them to, expose someone to, something new or unique. Well, maybe unique. I don't know. To me.
Right. And the other thing that I've heard from people is like, they'll come up to your table and be like, I used to do this and I made so much money on it. I used to sell this for $1,000 or whatever, like a corn steak morph. And it's like, and then I got out because it dropped below $200. I'm like, well, didn't you like it the whole time? Like, wasn't that your project? Wouldn't you want a pair still or something? And they're like, no, I just moved on. And I'm like, I kind of get that a little bit. Like if it doesn't fit your room or whatever, but like, why are we letting things go just for like purely economic reasons when maybe whatever the species, corn snakes as a species won't be lost, but most of the lines are fucking gone. You can't buy lines anymore because people gave up on them. So like,
well, I think, and you almost can't deny that Morse had such a big role to play in it, man. Because I mean, if you look at the species that are popular in the hobby compared to all the other species out there, like, why are retics so prevalent? Because there's a ton of Morse. Why were berms so prevalent? And yet Indian pythons are so similar, but they nearly died out to the hobby. because there weren't the morphs compared to the berms. So people put those to the side. Now, or like hog noses. I'm not saying hog noses are bad snakes, but there's a lot more regulation on those, and they're rear fang venomous. But it was because of the morphs, you know, or the color variation compared to other species is why they have such a higher value or more popularity, you know.
Right.
And
people
like I
don't.
sorry,
people don't
ahead.
feel as bearish about the non-morphed hognose species as they do the Western, which has the most morphs.
Right.
But like Southerns are cool, Mexicans are cool, Easterns are cool. All of the same like potential regulatory problems, but they like the Westerns because there's like a morph sort of pyramid to it currently.
Yeah. No, but they're adorable. I'm not gonna lie. Hognoses are pretty cute. So
they're little shits.
They're mean.
They're so fun, and I'm like, it talks. I think people like it because they're sassy or whatever. But I'm like, this isn't actually that fun of an animal to work because it's just like constant like hissing and sassying and eating of the tub, and I'm like, a corn snake would sit there very quietly by itself.
Right. Oh man.
With no attitude.
I mean, like even rat snakes, different milk snake species. I mean, there's not even just the hognose species, but there's so many cool colubrids out there. You know, just in North America. Like if I didn't work with so many pythons, I would probably be a colubrid guy because I always enjoyed a lot of the North American stuff. I mean, we had probably some of the prettiest colubrids in the world. You know.
Yeah, it's actually crazy what we have. We got lucky in many ways.
Right.
It's just Lampropeltis is fucking nuts.
Oh, dude. Oh my god. Yeah.
It is not the hognose master race. Fuck those things. I'm kidding. They're fine, but I'm tired of their bad attitude.
Right. Eating fingers and
they're fine. And I'm just like, corn snakes are better. So anyway,
are baby hognoses more of a pain to get started than corn snakes? I'm assuming, at least from what I hear, that's what people make it seem.
Yeah, I think that's true. But I also think like fecundity wise, corn snakes win. Like hognoses eat their own eggs, they eat their mates, they slug out at a high percentage. There's something wrong with feeding them rodents. They need to be eating, you know.
They make those Reptilinks makes frog links. I never got why people didn't at least experiment with it, you know, just to see how it would work.
I know a lot of people are, and they're trying to do stuff like feeding hard-boiled eggs as a percentage of the time to like get them more consistent, but maybe they're just not that consistent. That's part of why the prices are stable, because like half of them are not that viable. Like hognose wise, they're just not.
Okay.
And they tend to eat shit when they get crypto the worst of all time. So like that's part of why their prices are like protected. And I think they are fine and fun. I'm just like, I don't know. Trust me, corn snakes are easier. And that's sort of like a penalty. Like if they're easier to produce. So anybody produces them, it depresses the market.
Right.
Whatever. Which is fine. Everyone should do what they want to do. All right, what about ring pythons? How do you feel about those?
Oh man, they're in the same they're in the same category with like the white lips. They're very pretty, very cool, but you got to be willing to deal with just a sassy little snake. Yeah. That it would try to bite me shortly after that picture.
Right. Beautiful.
Right.
But it's like, I don't know, like since they command a better price, it's almost like worth convincing someone to have this bougie pet and deal with the sassiness.
Yeah. I have some that aren't too. I just sold a male with no eyes. You know, the funny part is I picked up a pair of them a couple years ago, and I picked them up. They were this size, you know, they had their bright, vibrant colors, and the female was an asshole. The male was abnormally calm, and I go, cool. I got another calm white lip ring python. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, they're very colubrid, like they're very fast acting, moving snakes. You know, they're hard to keep track of. So, and they're little, and their heads are black. Well, one day I kind of looked down at this snake, and I go, its head looks a little funny. So I had to like really restrain it to see it, get a little closer to it, and the little fucker didn't have eyes. I went 6 or 8 months without knowing this thing didn't have eyes, and I was like, holy shit.
That is
And
crazy.
it did fine. It did fine. It just didn't have eyes. And I go, maybe that's why you were just a little bit calmer than your sister was. So no, they're neat pythons. I think the problem is they're like similar to white lips where they don't, this sounds, bad, but if you were to leave town and their water dries up or something, they're going to go downhill really quick or they just die. They don't handle having not enough hydration of,
right.
within a certain period. I've taken some to a show. I think once they get to a year old, they can handle a little bit better. I tried it with my yearling white lips and that ring python. I didn't give them water and they did fine. But if there were neonates and stuff, like little, like that size of a ring python, you would shrivel up like a, raisin if it ran out of water or something for
like. So, like, could you take one to Tinley and have like a 5-day peck out without water in between?
Yeah, what I do is I did this with the baby white lips, and because they're the same way. If they run out of water, they'll go downhill quick. I just leave them in normal displays, and then at the end of the day, I'll take one of those 2-ounce couplings, and you just stick it in there, zip tie it to like one of the little holes so they don't knock it all over the place, and they do fine like that. Give it, and then then the next day, so it doesn't look so tacky, take it back out again, and they do fine like that.
You ever tried like misting them and having them drink from the droplets the way like the crested gecko in New Caledonia people do, where they're on like moss or whatever anyway?
I've never tried it. I keep mine on that what is it called?
The white chip?
Polyfit or not? Yeah. What is it called? Something. I'm drawing a blank on its name. Yeah, that white pressed wood chip stuff. So that's why.
And that stuff's like pretty drying.
Alpha dry.
Dry.
That's what it's called. Yeah, that's what it's called. But yeah, no, I just keep them on the. I just put a coupling in there. I just don't want to have a bunch of soaking wet wood chips. Is why I don't typically do the mist thing. But I've even thought about if I could get a little like sea serpent rack or something with like one of those poles, just so I can lock it so no one, steals shit. I would like to have just a little rack behind it so I could just take them out and put them in like a little rack or something with a little coupling of water and moisture and stuff is what I'd like. What I'd like to do, but I don't make enough of them that I don't know. If I had like a display or two of white lips or rings, I would probably do something like that.
Do you take white lips to shows now, or do you like take a couple and you're like?
I take a few. I don't take them all. I'll take like a handful of them. I even if I know I'm probably not going to sell a baby white lip at a show, but I do it because I actually generally enjoy. Because there is, like I said prior, there is no YouTube videos of them. I actually like talking to people about them. I generally get like a kick out of educating people because I like to pick out little unique either natural history or stories about how they got into the States if they have an interesting one, or white lips and a lot of the complex cough up hairballs. That's always a kick to people. They go, cough up hairballs.
Yeah, I think people need to learn more about that. Because I think there's like weird natural history features that nobody even knows about because we never kept them.
Why are they so iridescent? You explain why. Their scales. Little ridges like your finger to bead water off of them because they live in real moist and humid environments and stuff. So. Yeah, like I said, there's all kinds of interesting things, and I like I said, I like talking to people about them, and that's, I've even had to talk people out of them because they want to keep it in a tank, and it's just a species that just wouldn't do too well in a tank. If it's the traditional tank, I'm thinking people would probably keep it in. I go just do more research on it, go home and think about it, and be ready for an animal with some sass too. I got F2s and they're still just as sassy as the adults are, or wild caught ones I've messed with. So I mean, I don't know. I tell people you never know if they could adapt to handling better than a wild caught one that would tend to stress out more. I've had wild caught ones that, you know, if you handle them, at least as a baby, if you handle them too much, it just stresses them out, and sometimes they go downhill afterwards, you know, from just too much forceful handling.
So do you think, I mean, I'm just gonna like put this out there. You think a normal human ball python person should be looking for CB, whichever one they pick, or do you think there is a species that they could do a long trip captive wild caught python of any kind? You know, like that's more steady.
Oh man, Liasis would probably be your best one. Liasis. Honestly, a lot of ball python people are doing them now, but Angolans are pretty good. You don't really get you're not going to get a whole lot of wild caught ones, but I mean, they're starting to get more genetic diversity. I got two that came from wild caught parents, and then another one that was a Canadian bloodline, which came back to U.S. bloodline, and then one wild caught female. So
yeah,
I mean,
all right, we left
another one.
Australia early, but that's okay. Let's talk about Angolans. Yeah, I think most people are like naturally drawn to Angolans because they like vaguely ball python shaped, even though they're like quite different as like a ledge specialist or whatever.
They're more in like structure. They're more genetically. They're more closely to the rock pythons. I could show you some pictures of South African rocks that almost look like Angolans as far as their color. You know, they have a very similar coloration. They're probably
on the internet I could find quickly.
You'd have to Google it. I actually know it wasn't even Google. No, it wasn't Google. It's someone on Facebook showed a picture of it, and I have it on my phone, but I don't. Yeah, I saved it. It was pretty unique. So yeah, they're pretty animals too. They got different looks. You can get lighter ones, darker ones, striped ones. They can, you know, just don't breed it to your ball python. You just make something that was cool. You know, I had Dave fucking drives me nuts when he says, you know, if you just breed it to a ball python morph and then breed it back to Angola. I go, get the fuck out of here. Don't be breeding no ball python morph to. That's sacrilege. I should punch in the balls for even saying that.
You should punch him in the balls for charity.
I go, yeah, right. But I'm just like, just don't do it.
The problem with this one is they look so almost like ball pythons, even at 50%, that it's there was one today on Facebook, and I'm like, damn, that already, if I squint hard enough, it doesn't even look 50%. It looks 70%. And one more generation, you would no idea.
Dude, people in general hobbyists have such a rough time telling the difference between hybrids. This was maybe a year or two ago. Someone on one of my local Facebook groups goes, "Hey, I picked up this chocolate ball python. Can someone confirm if that's what it is?" And it was a wall. It was a Woma ball python. I go, how the fuck do you? How can you not tell that doesn't look just wrong? And I'm like, see, this is what I mean. This guy clearly thought he was getting a ball python morph, not a hybrid. And I'm just like, this is why I stay away from them. I just don't see. There's just no reason for it. They, you know. And then then if you start hybridizing stuff, then it just becomes like, you know, it becomes like the dogs or I wouldn't say cats, but more like dogs, where you get an animal that kind of looks like a wolf, but it's not really a wolf, or not quite a wolf. It's like that same thing with hybrids. You'd start mixing the ones at least that can breed to each other. You start mixing them together, and then you start getting, well, it looks like a ball python, but not quite a ball python. Or, you know, fucking size, you know, people. Someone was telling me a while ago, it's like, why don't we try to get the Volta locality ball pythons and get bigger ball pythons? I go, because we already keep them in small tubs. Do you really want to keep like potentially a 6-foot ball python? And I don't even know what size.
Is there a large enough market for that to necessitate all of the necessary byproduct
right.
to get there.
Because they're obsessed with the bigger clutches, and I go, well, be grateful they don't lay big clutches, because look at the retics. You imagine?
Or
I mean, it
look at
wouldn't be
corn
quite.
snakes.
Well,
You know,
yeah,
double
there you
clutch, 15 eggs.
Right.
Every price will be $200 eventually, if you're lucky.
Right. So,
yeah, I love Angolans. I would give 10 out of 10. Like, I think they
they feel different too. They're beaded, so they have a different feel than most pythons that are typically a lot more smooth feeling. So
yeah, I almost got tricked by Nick Mutton at like the last Pack Noirs that I went to before I moved, and I was like, no.
he's a smooth talker. You got to watch that
I
guy.
know, he's sneaky.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
He calls me up just to buy shit from him, and I go, hey.
He's got bills to pay. Let me call.
Right, yeah, right. And then he sells you. He's like, man, these are pretty rare. And I go, yeah. I was like, I'm sure they are, Nick.
He's got to butter you up just right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go back to Australia. Womas and blackheads. What do you think about ball python people's dreams or perceptions?
Woma pythons would probably, if they were a little easier to hatch, they would be probably, man, Woma pythons would probably be up there. I would put them even above Angolan pythons just because of their color.
They're beautiful.
And they're easy to get started. They're not like the blackheads. Blackheads are like the opposite end of that spectrum, where unless you breed bearded dragons and you're willing to feed a lizard to it, then it's probably not a problem at all. But most people have that ick about, feeding lizards to, snake. And and stuff, there's always that fear, you never know what you could be transferring over if you feed it, if you don't got clean beardies or whatever lizard you decide to feed. So
that is a good question. Like, can adenovirus, the bearded dragon version, pass through the gastrointestinal tract to a blackhead? I actually do not know. Like, I know adenovirus can get into it, but it might have to be like, I don't know.
I would be afraid.
Orally.
I'd be afraid to check. That's one of those. That's one, and then it's one of those. Blackheads are so expensive. Do I really want to take that chance? Oh,
right.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm just like,
I like the colubrid body form. I think it's very charming. I know people like big python heads, but it's a cool look on them with the stripes.
If you like colubrids, like you said, especially king snakes, they're very king snake-ish.
Right.
They'll latch on the fingers to her every so often. They're not too bad. A lot of other people say they have a lot worse, or a lot more aggro or food-driven womas. Mine aren't too bad. Every once in a while, they'll get this like wild hair up their ass and they'll try, but they're not as bad as some. My blackheads, on the other hand, are horrendous. As soon as I touch them, it's just like immediate. You touch them, they push and try to see if they can squeeze. Mm-hmm. And my blackheads are what most people say their womas are like, as far as like crazy food aggression. So
right now, woma would be the recommendation.
I think womas would be really, they're up there. Like I said, the only issue I failed at my clutch this year. They didn't make it the term because of the incubation. They looked a little dimpled, so I go, I'm just going to add water to it. So I just dumped a little bit more water in it, and I guess I overdid it.
Oh no, that sucks.
Yeah,
that's all right. Yeah. Next time.
You know how I solve this problem? I just buy more Woma pythons. I go, if I have shitty luck with one pair, I'll just get another one, and then I have the bad mentality where, like, if I have one pair that don't breed, well, maybe if I get another pair,
I'm okay with that, because sometimes like a pair is like a bum pair, and you wouldn't know that. You would think like you suck at breeding that species. Right. So if you can get a couple, get like a little colony type, a 2-5 or whatever way you want to work it.
Right.
You'll be like, shit, this one like works in my room and aren't broken or half inbred so bad. Right. And that's probably my problem with Western hognose. I have a shit pair. Don't tell hognose. Sorry.
Oh man, no, but yeah, but womas are up there though. They're really cool. Blackheads are like they're they're cool, but they come with quite a bit more work, and you can wreck you can wreck a black-headed python a lot easier than you can a Woma python if you fed it like a ball python. I think that's the thing, is you got to get out of that ball python mentality. Even like I said, ball pythons do fine on that mentality that most people have, but you could do a different mentality. It's just, you just got to learn to shift your mind towards something different. My motto is, this is my personal opinion, but if your method of breeding doesn't go across different species, and when I mean different species, like other pythons, let's say, because 96% of pythons breed almost identical. They're really, because they're all on the equator for the most part. They all face fairly similar things as far as like rainy seasons, fluctuation in food, stuff like that. You only got a handful of pythons that actually deal with like cold temperatures. When I went to South Africa last year, I was in the home range of like Nederlandsis and stuff, South African rock. And I went over there when it was getting towards the end of their winter, and I was surprised how cold it was for a python. That was.
Do you have Nederlandsis now?
No, they don't exist. Okay, that's an interesting one. Apparently they exist, but the people who have them don't want to tell anyone. So because I remember I posted a picture of a wild one I didn't find in the wild. I went to a little reptile zoo that had one in the back that they found in a car. So, and they had it, I guess I don't know if they were going to keep it or they were going to release it later, but yeah, they had one there, and I posted it, and some guy goes, because I made this, I try to be inspirational every once in a while. I just said, gave like a U.S. ARC, support U.S. ARC because, otherwise we'll have species forgotten like Nederlandsis, and some guy goes, no, they're still in the hobby. They just don't want to talk to anyone.
So they were imported illegally, and they don't have CITES permits that predate their CITES one.
I guess you couldn't get any information because the guy who said he didn't actually own any. He just knew a guy, right? It was one of those people. So he goes, and then he goes, I said, can I get this guy's information, his email? And he goes, no, you give me your email and they'll message you if they want. I go, oh, okay.
That's how you know there's drugs involved somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
Is that picture on your Instagram?
Yeah, you should be. Yeah, it was me. It's a blurry picture because the snakes start moving on me. So, it's they're a neat little. They're not neat little, but they're a neat python. They're certainly, wouldn't recommend them for every. Yep.
Yeah, well, it's cool that they're like, I don't know, cold tolerant, because that sort of implies a level of.
They're similar to, I don't know. Like I've seen some rock pythons that they almost, South African rock pythons in particular, give me very anaconda vibes. Like even like some of the way they look, I've seen some that have a very anacondish look with a shorter snout, stay relatively big compared to the males, and sometimes you do get group breedings, like multiple males with one female. I work with Python Sebi, which is the Central African rock. Those guys have a bit more of an arrow-shaped head, and they're a bit more distinct in their pattern. It's not as
they're really beautiful, actually. Did you have to trick a guy in a basement somewhere into selling them?
These are These are Sri Lankans. Yeah, Sri Lankan. I have them somewhere. There it is, right there in the center here? There. Yep. I mean, they're neat, but like I said, rock pythons are for a special kind of people. They're not
for ball python people.
Yeah, they're just because it comes from Africa doesn't mean it's going to be good for you. Those guys they're even for a retic person, they're kind of, even for a berm person, they're still they're like a berm but more amped up. Like they don't tolerate BS as much as like a berm will or something.
Right. But what about the dwarf berms? Now that we're here,
dwarf
like Prague shy, like Java, Bali.
I see. Yeah, people talk about those. You know, I remember years ago people used to downplay those and used to say, "Oh, they're so mean." But I've seen some people with I guess it would be F3s, and I mean, I'm sure they're still hissy like mainland berms, but I mean, they seem just fine. Like the guy's petting the head, and they seem just fine, you know. So I'm sure multiple generate. I think again, kind of like with even with Jampiensis, the dwarf, the super dwarf retics or whatever, you don't get as many colors. I think there's one morph in Prockshire, the dwarf berms, but I don't know if it's in the States or not. Dylan would know. I saw him out there. He would know the morph that's in them. But if you're into boa size animals, Prockshire, and you like berms, you gotta like berms. Some people, you know,
I like berms as a concept. I like them better than retics. Let me just be honest.
Yeah.
I think retics are cool looking, but fuck them. I've heard enough. Even with super dwarfs, you know, like put a lot of pushing and carrying on and hurting themselves.
More unpredictable, I think, than a berm is. You know,
yeah.
A berm either is going to bite you, or it's not, or a retic if it's going through its mood, like those seasonal retics. You know, the female or not the females with the males, just you know, and if they're I've seen them. Oh, you're good. I've seen them mess each other up too. You know, I mean.
They'll
male and female
off each other's heads, like scythe it off.
Did you see that video of an Australian animal relocator? He showed a picture of his wrist, and you had these giant. I mean, cut his artery, whatever it was, cut his artery.
Okay.
And he said, "Oh, it was." Someone asked, did a king horneye do that? And king horneye is the big scrub pythons in Australia. And that's what I thought did it. He said, no, it was a carpet python. I go, bullshit. No way a carpet python did that to him. And he showed a video of it, and fucking carpet grabbed his forearm, and the carpet moved its head, you know, trying to wrap it up, and it just slit his artery right open. And I go, wow. I go, that you know, someone like me who keeps a bunch of that like medium-sized python immediately made me think, I wouldn't want employees for a lot of other reasons, but that definitely gave me another reason why I don't think I would want an employee messing with something that they don't know. Not this, and like I was saying, that's probably 1 in a million, but I mean, think about it. Boas could probably do it.
Yeah, especially if there's like a pulling motion, either from the snake or you, like you're reflexively, like their teeth, none of their teeth, some of their teeth are really big, but like, you know, if you get it hit the right spot, you always need, you know, I prefer to do work with the bigger stuff, even if they're not in my building, like when my husband is home. Because I had to call him the other day. I'm like, I have a snake, like food striking here. It wasn't even a big snake, and it actually wrapped my arms in a way that maybe like a bunny. And I'm like using my nose to call and be like, come here, I need to I'll put it under the sink, but I don't know.
You know, back to the retics, I had when I worked for Ben, he had a breeder male retic. He was about 9 foot, pretty slim. He wasn't very thick snake, and he cuffed my hands. And this is before I really knew about the retic breeding, you know, males in their cycle. Well, the male cuffed my hands, and he didn't come off aggressive. He just cuffed me. But Ben was there. Ben saw that, and he goes, oh, no. He's like, you better get him off of you. Well, then he did it again. Well, after I got him off, when I tried to put him back in his cage, he did it again. He cuffed both my hands, and he just he casually turned back around, not an aggressive, like, you know, or a food response or an aggressive response, just casually came up, and then he just popped his mouth open on my forearm, you know, just latched on. And I go, you know, if someone who just got a retic, or, you know, just thought they could handle it, and just, you know, that male was in his season, or, you know, whatever the case might have been, and just decided to latch onto him, you know, that could be a trip to the emergency room, you know, and then your insurance isn't going to cover that if you know, if you can somehow convince them it was something else. But, you know,
None of these things are bad bites, but like when people are like, "Yeah, I have 10 super dwarf retics, and they're all 4 feet for now," I'm just
Right.
like, we'll
For
see.
now.
We'll see what happens. Yeah, I like dwarf berms conceptually. I just like, are any of them pure? Can we
Yeah,
prove that they're pure? Or they're going to stay 8 feet? But on paper, it seems cool.
I think look at Bob Clark. I don't know. Bob Clark feeds the shit out of stuff, and his still were in like, I don't know what kind of tubs they were. They kind of look like something a little bit wider than a CB70, but I mean, didn't seem that much deeper. I don't know what they were. I'd have to show you pictures of it, but I mean, he had adult females in tubs, you know, laying eggs, and Bob, like I said, Bob's known to feed the shit out of stuff. Not quite like Jay Brewer feed, but he would feed the crap out of stuff, and they still were small enough to stay in a, you know, in a tub.
We might have a deal forming in the chat between Chris and Dylan. So congratulations, everybody.
Right.
Yeah, like a cute little berm that's still a berm, and you would treat it like a boa thing would be fine for, I think, a lot of ball python people would be like, yeah, that'd be easy. You know, a 6 foot enclosure for a 6 foot snake. It's living a palatial, fun life potentially. You know, it's not that much of a stretch, and it's still a cool berm.
Right. Yep.
I think.
No, absolutely. You know.
Scrubs. Let's go back to Australia.
Scrub pythons.
They're very cool looking. Let me give them the credit, like the face credit of like the luminescence of their eyes and the scalation. Very attractive. But what do you got?
You're probably right. Out of all the pythons, this is gonna sound bad, but they are probably my least favorite. I like them and I work with them. And they're cool. You know, hey, I'm gonna give them this. You know, people hype up retics and how smart they are, and you know, intelligence in snakes can be relative. But if there were truly an intelligent group of snakes, I think the scrub pythons take the retics. You know, retics will. You know, I've seen retics do some pretty stupid shit. You know, I've seen retics do self-harm that you couldn't believe an animal would do to itself. You know, scrub pythons are a lot more deliberate. They may not like you, but they're more focused on you. Like a retic will kind of lunge and hope it hits something. A scrub python tends to be more accurate they used to face biters, you know, that was always a nickname I remember hearing them get called, is because they were always pretty accurate at hitting people in the face, you know, if they didn't want to get messed with. But there is the tandem bars, nada, that are that stay almost in between a green python and a carpet python size, so that 5 to 6 foot range. But the caveat is, if you fed it like a ball python, I have seen them get to 8 to 9 foot almost. So they can get you know, if you overfeed them, they can get big. So, but I mean, if you're willing to work with them too, they're not the worst thing, but I certainly wouldn't want to just sell one to someone who didn't know what they were getting into, because, you know, it would be
tandem bars.
Yep, tandem bars. I've never got to work with them before, but they're a little more sassy, from what I heard. They seem to suffer from little man syndrome, I guess, compared to some of the other ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think we just need to like captive breed them for a couple generations to get a selection going for niceness? Harder, like a couple more generations, because we just haven't, you know, like retics used to all be complete psychos, but now like just half of them are psychos.
Right.
So, I mean, we're making progress.
Well, you know, sometimes I wonder though, could retics be further along? Because I think the problem is we were so focused on morphs rather than personality. You know, a ball python, no one cares about, because I mean, their personalities are pretty standard. You know, you might get some that are a bit more bold than others, but it's not life-threatening dangerous like a big mainland retic or potentially dangerous. But like with retics, I think the reason why retics suffered was because it was more of, I'd rather have this morph over this normal or a lower grade animal that was a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
I think that
we could have
lower
been
dopamine.
selecting just for like decreased, adrenaline. Like
I've seen
that's
people,
all it would have taken to like make them just not amp up when
know,
something kind of scary happens. They could just
right?
be like, "Oh, okay." Because
Some people, I know one guy in particular. He does it with the Curtis complex. Dan Magano. He, from what I hear, he does it to. He only breeds nice ones, and I mean, he has puppy dog, short
right.
tails and stuff.
Let's talk about Curtis. Let's go. I think a lot of ball python people do jump here because of like similar body plan, but like different enough.
Kind of more impressive. It's kind of like you wanted a python still, but you wanted something kind of almost like boas, I guess, as far as like size, but maybe not as long, but size wise fairly similar. And they're starting to get a bunch of different color morphs and color variations and stuff like that. So
yeah, I think as like a candidate, they're pretty good. I just think because they get bigger, they're like competing for a different sized.
Right.
Like the biggest female is competing for like a different size rack, like at least a 90 series.
So there are some that stay, like, I don't work with them, but someone says I've heard the pumpkin head Curtis stay smaller, about girthier, a little girthier than a ball python, but pretty comparable and length and everything. But again, it doesn't have the morphs that the blood pythons would have. The blood pythons, when it comes to, if you're obsessed with morphs, the blood pythons are going to be your go-to. They have by far the most as far as that's concerned.
Do bloods sell well at shows? I've heard people be like, I took just a table full of bloods and did horrific, like didn't sell anything because like,
well, I think
because like people are like, what the fuck is that? It's not a ball python, but it's like not different enough that it like tricks the different people into wanting it. Like
I think it's would. Well, even carpets, sometimes I think it's priced too, because a lot of the blood morphs are still kind of not ridiculously expensive, but then they still have that stigma where, they're like carpets do. Oh, they're mean, they're bitey. Someone needs to do a YouTube video. I mean, someone with blood python, if they start doing YouTube videos, they would be fine. Well, I guess they could be fine potentially. If they would just. And who knows? Someone could. Well, there are people doing it. I guess there are people making YouTube videos, but I guess they're not. I don't know. Unless you do YouTube videos like Billy or Justin, I guess they don't seem to pick up as much value. Or Garrett. Like, I don't know. It seems like if you step up your game with videos, like at least put a half-ass attempt into making it look half decent, then you might have a chance. If you just throw a video out there, it's only going to do so well.
I think people forget ball pythons are an absolute like marketing juggernaut. Every ball python is getting like the beneficial effects of all of the people doing their own like personal promotion for their projects, but they're all the same species. There's no subspecies or whatever. So we're all just like, fuck it, let's go. So like people get into the hobby and like, oh yeah, ball pythons, of course, because it's like obvious that's what 90% of people are doing. And so it just like takes the will to be like, I'm going to sit down and make a shitty YouTube video about my stupid or whatever. It's a lot of work, obviously.
For sure. But I'm surprised some of these ball python people, if they took what they would try with ball pythons and move to a different species, as long as you're not an asshole. This is the caveat.
That's the hard part.
This is the problem, and this is the issue I see with ball pythons when they do get into a different species. Sometimes when you bring that ball python mentality, sometimes that off-puts a lot of the old heads or the older people that you're probably going to be buying those snakes from, and they're going to, not always, but some people you can tell it's, it can be off-putting, and that's the one kind of, I guess it depends how you come off. Like when I get into stuff, I am like genuinely into that species, You know,
Mhm.
I think literally the only species outside of ball pythons, and I do have wild caught ball pythons,
Mhm.
but uh, is blood pythons. I did get drawn into some of the blood more, so I'm not gonna lie to you. Those they were pretty. The golden eye man, that's a hot snake. That is hard to beat. You know,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
I think it's okay if there's a world where like a person can be into the wild type, into the
Right.
natural animal, and be like, I also just like morphs because I just like them, and I also like that animal not morphed, and I can appreciate like there's room for all of us, and all of that is available in the same person. Like I like the shittiest, gayest, colorfulest corn snakes possible, but I also
Right.
like the wild type, like badass monster that'll, corn
Right.
snake. It doesn't matter. They're all equally fun. One of them
And
happens to be purple and pink, so like
and
it's okay.
and I try to be as respectful to the people I get stuff from. Like, you know, I think so with ball pythons, you use the price, you know, negotiation and saying like, you know, you're asking, you know, will you take this? Will you take that? You know, hey, if I buy this big group, will you give me this much of a discount? When I buy a species, I but usually when I'm buying different species, they're not like $20,000. You know, they're
Right.
usually, you know, but if I'll pay whatever they're asking, you know, generally speaking, I don't Jew them down. I try to be like I said, I respect what they doing or doing in that whatever species or part of the hobby they're in, and I pay that price because it's one of those like you know, sometimes just like that mentality that comes with ball pythons can be off-putting to other people, you know, especially when they work hard for, you know, I think we take for granted how easy a ball python can breed, you know, and just
Yeah.
that formulated ball python breeding. And then when you breed something that is maybe a little harder to breed and someone says, "Will you take this for it?" You know, it's kind of like it's like where else are you going to get this species from, you know?
Right. Be
Or
grateful it still exists in the hobby for you to
and
buy at any price.
unless it's a Bowen's python, they're usually pretty reasonable. Other than
Right.
Bowen's pythons that are just fucking way out there, it's like most of this stuff is pretty reasonable, you know, as far as pricing. There's some
Right.
species, some people are like, I don't know, they're out there, and I'm kind of like, man, I don't know. I try to go into like when I buy a species too, I always look at it as will this species sell well at like $500, you
Right.
know. And that's a general statement, you know, obviously some species are going to be way under that, some species are going to be quite a bit over that, you know. There's like a happy medium, but my value is always like will it do well at $500, you know,
Yeah.
because you know, generally speaking too, when you breed a lot of these miscellaneous things, unless especially when you're not talking about morphs, you're probably selling to mostly pet people, and then a smaller percentage are probably going to be breeders. You know,
Right. Which makes like the sort of arithmetic complicated because you need to know that a pet person would want that
right,
ever. And maybe it takes you 2 years to sell a clutch full and you don't breed them that often because
right,
that's how long it takes. But like that's why like I think waters and olives struggle a little bit because it's just like a big uniform colored, cool
right.
looking, weird, but
You
like
could. That's why I think it's like I was telling you earlier. I think it's important if you're going to do something like that, don't just get a million of them and try to crank the shit out of them. Because if you do that, then yeah, you're gonna probably not sell most of them. You know, but if you have one clutch of waters, one clutch of Maclots or Dunai or
mhm.
Savuensis, you know, then you're kind of That's why tell people it's like a market relief. You know, I'm not bearing all this pressure down on one animal or one
Yeah.
species. It's kind of, you know, you know, distributing among other species, you know, try it
Mhm.
anyways, you
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I think if we all like stood around and bred all of our rare stuff all the same year on accident, we would absolutely annihilate that market because
Right,
there's
right.
not enough
Yep.
interest in like
Right,
five, even like 20 clutches of Bredli, I don't think, in the whole community.
right. Yeah.
Even though they're
Yeah.
cool, we should keep them, but we don't need yet
Yeah.
until we build a market for them on the pet side.
Right. Right.
Speaking of Brittany, it's carpet time. Yay!
Oh man. Woo.
I don't know.
Oh,
I'm just
man.
going through all the pythons as
Yeah.
fast as possible.
We're just
weird.
we're bouncing around everywhere.
We're doing our best
Yeah,
life.
we're trying.
Okay, of the not Brettali and Roughies, we'll talk about that in a second. But of like the carpet complex, which one should a ball python person buy and why?
So it kind of depends on what you like color wise, because for an animal that doesn't have a whole lot of morphs, even in Australia, they got a number of morphs, but they're it's not crazy. I don't, at least unless there's a bunch of like, underground shit that I just don't see, but it's not. It's probably comparable to bloods almost, not quite, but the difference is all the blood pythons have the majority of the morphs. Carpet morphs are like Bredli has a few, Cheney Eye has a few, Variegata has a few, Diamond might have one, Coastals might have the Southern Coastals might have a few. So, and there's a wide range of looks too, as far as like, do you like more of a reddish snake? Then probably your anywhere from your Bredli. Well, you said we'll talk about Bredli later, but like,
well, it's fine. I feel like they're almost like their own category because they're so red.
They're pretty. But then big. You got like then you got your Variegata, or your Darwins, your Papuans are really similar looking, as far as when you're talking reddish orange tones. And then you go further, then you get your Cheney Eye, and then Cheney has like they got more of that, most people know them as the black and yellows. Now Nick does the ivories that are black and white. Then you got traditional wild locality types. So you got that more of a off black and gold look instead, that are more striped. So you can get more of that striped look and potentially breed for stripe, because Australia has some of the best striped jungles than anyone, better than Europe, definitely better than us. So if you took, and we emphasize so much on the black and yellow that's all we did for decades, that now a lot of our stuff's black and yellow banded animals. So it's hard to, sometimes that new blood, like the locality, Palmersons that have the stripe, breed that into to try to get different stripes. But then you got the Southern Coastals, and those vary a lot. They can come in browns, yellows, blacks, different tones of browns, even like a purple hue to them. That's hard to explain. I guess it's the type of iridescent look that they can kind of have, and they got a bunch of different stripes, bandeds, bunch of different looks. And then you got your McAfee. I think those are probably some of the best carpets as far as personality goes, because they're just so mellow. They have a axanthic look, if you're into like the axanthic, silver and gray look animals. Some have oranges and stuff in them too. There's been a few people that are breeding for more oranges or yellows and kind of almost a red color.
What are their prices right now? I haven't checked.
They're all pretty. Carpets are all pretty reasonable. You can.
Well, roughies are still.
Roughies
expensive.
Are relative compared to ball pipe. They're like maybe a bit above, maybe 2 paycheck snakes for roughies. Even roughies aren't too bad.
No, and they're cool too because they have this like delicate. I don't know. There's something about the eye color relative to their like base color. I think is cool, but it's with roughies anyway.
Oh, with the roughies, okay.
It's like a pale gray blue eye.
Oh yeah, they're odd looking. I think the biggest thing is their keeled scales. It's the only python that has keeled scales, and they got some big ass teeth too. I had a little male that did the little threat display. That's probably the second coolest thing, is their threat display. They drop their bottom jaw and spread it out, kind of like a frill will do with their frill, and expose their teeth. I wouldn't want to get bit by them though. That wouldn't be very pleasant.
You have a roughie on your Instagram picture?
I should.
All right, I'll look.
I don't know where, but there should be some, something on there. But yeah, roughies are cool. But then back to the carpets. Then you got then after the McAfee, you got diamonds. Diamonds are, everyone loves diamond pythons.
Yeah.
They all like that granity look to them and stuff. And they're pretty bulletproof snakes. If you don't, they like it cooler. They're the,
There's just something about the like the keeled scales and the weird heads and like these like pale eyes. I don't know. I don't
they're
know.
cool.
The eyes.
They're they're not. Every once in a while, I mean, it's rare, but every once in a while you might get a dickhead roughy. But usually they're all really chill. They're usually not that bad. At least from the ones I've messed with, them were never really too bad.
Do you think they're like rare enough still that they're like their price is coming down?
Yeah,
still, because it's like whatever, 1,800 a pair or something last year. What was it last year?
Yeah, that probably about that probably. I think around 1,800, 2,000.
They're probably still going to come down a little bit,
Yeah.
but don't you think like a ball python person could ride that sort of next generation if they bought a pair this year when they breed in 4 or 5 years or whatever?
Yeah,
it takes like the time scales changes with these, like,
right. They're not too. I think the problem with the ball python people, they don't even like wild type ball pythons. I don't know if a rough scale with the brown colors will appeal to them unless they like that keeled scale. I just don't. The eyes, of course, too, but I just don't know. Like I said, I don't know.
Right,
Sometimes
like jungles and diamonds are flashy, and Bredli are red. So like you'd think they would like that, but like
the problem with the Bredli is they take a little while longer to get to that mature color. Otherwise, not gonna lie, they kind of look like dull little worms. They're not very pretty. I'm not gonna say they look like shit. I was about to come out of my mouth, but they definitely are pretty.
It's
but
okay.
Babies
I don't think they're listening.
They're hard to sell, as far as trying to convince people why they're cool.
Yeah, for them, I think it'd be cool to have like a pair or two, Bredli, just for fun. But it feels hard to be like, this is my project. I'm gonna have 10 of them.
I think the biggest drawback, especially with the Morelia, is like, especially if you're basing stuff off of the Reptiles show, sometimes the best way to sell someone on something is bringing your adults, and I hate bringing adults to shows. I will, unless I'm going to sell the adult animal, I almost never bring an adult because,
it makes you want to die. I'm being perfectly honest. So like the people who bring like a picture, like here's their jungles or whatever, and there's like 2-year-old, 12-month-old, 3-year-old,
right.
The parents, like the like range of pictures, I think is a good idea. But
maybe if you do carpets, try to be a photographer if you can, like at least learn a bit more of it. Because if you do a shitty cell phone pic or something like that don't capture the colors right, you're gonna really do the snake a disservice. And and then usually, even when you do bring the adults, a lot of times people think you're trying to hoodwink them by trying to sell them. Hey, but this baby will look like this adult. And they don't know they may not know who you are, so they might think, this guy's probably just trying to sell me on a dream or something, or something like that. But, even bringing the adults isn't, even if you were brave enough to do it, that's not a guarantee either, as far as getting people convinced of why something's neat.
Like I've taken Japanese rat snakes, I think I've said this on my podcast before, to shows, and people are like, I don't want that ever. And I'm like, I swear to God, it turns green and blue when it grows up. And they're like,
There's a bunch of those rat snakes that kind of have that problem where they're real drab, and then it's like, I swear to God, this thing's gonna get beautiful when it gets older.
It's the glam up problem, but like but that's what it's gonna look like its whole life. So like, wouldn't that be awesome?
Well, ball python people, that's another thing, is a lot of species, a lot of stuff's in reverse. You go from ball pythons typically being the prettiest as babies and then ugly as adults, and then most other species it's drab as babies and then pretty as adults. Australian stuff is really have that problem, as far as most of them are like ugly little ducklings and then turn into the swan, or whatnot as they age. There's a few exceptions. I think black-headed pythons, this might catch me some heat, but black-headed pythons are almost like ball pythons, where they're pretty as babies, but sometimes when they get older, the color just doesn't, the pattern just breaks it up too much, and you get that faded look sometimes. But aside from maybe a very few, and then obviously your olive and your water python have no patterns, so you're not going to get a too drastically different look between the baby and adult. But most of the Australian stuff, you get drab babies and pretty adults, So
so jungles, is that your final answer?
Man, I don't know.
Obviously people can like everything and do everything, but I don't know. I think a lot of times you're like, people come up to you at the show and they're like, what do I buy? What do I buy? What do I do?
Right. So
how do you help them in this time of crisis in their life?
So jungle carpets are probably going to be your quickest satisfaction as far as the quickest, you make pretty stuff relatively quickly, but stuff like typically your jungles though are going to be a little more sassy. All the baby jungles almost all of them I've made have had some sort of little attitude to them, little sassy to them. And it takes, typically, if you're going to sell those, I had one guy who was like, that was what sealed the deal, is when it started biting him. He's like, yeah, this is the one I wanted. I go, good for you, man. You were probably the only one who would have said that. But yeah, no, generally speaking, that usually what scares a lot of people away. But like McCaffrey are so gentle, but you don't get quite the pop and colors as you would with your jungles. And then if you were willing to work on it, Papuan pythons, if someone got a group of those, you could have super hypo looking ones, dark, really, really dark looking ones, patternless ones. You could do all kinds of crazy line breeding with some of the Papuan pythons if someone was willing. Well, some people are trying to do it, but I mean, they're maybe, I think in the last 5-6 years, people have been they've been, at least in the Morelia world, they've been gaining more popularity. So, but I mean, jungles have had almost 30 years of just line breeding for black and yellow. So they're kind of the more instant gratification animal compared to the other ones where you might have to put more work in. And there are more than the Papuan pythons, like your granites and axanthics, but just the wild type animal, if you were willing to put in the effort, you can make, your desert ghost Papuan python.
Like, I think the granites are hot, right? I like speckled shit to begin with. But do people like them? Like at a show? Like if you took a normal Papuan, a granite, and a axanthic, and you line them up, and you're like, what does the human like that isn't me? Because I have a terrible sense of taste. Like aesthetically.
It kind of depends on the variation. Like I've seen some Papuans that were really light granites, which kind of, I don't think are as cool. I kind of like the darker ones, because then the granites get all that pixelation, makes it darker looking. So you almost get a almost blackish snake, especially as an adult potentially. So I kind of like the darker ones, but I like darker colored snakes. I've always been about the darker, the better, for the most part.
He's into black snakes, 100%.
Yep, absolutely. The darker, the better.
Black short tails at the show, and I'm like,
oh,
this is like the craziest thing. Like this, everyone should be standing right here looking at this, because this is the best thing here, and nobody cared.
Oh, like short tail. I think I have a couple Curtis, the black short tails and stuff, and I never thought about giving snakes names before, but I was trying to think of like black stripper names to give the Curtis, because I thought it would be kind of funny. Just to have like just a stripper name for a bunch of short tails, I thought would be kind of cool. But I'm not creative enough to come up with these names, and I was just like, I'm horrible with names.
Let's ask the chat. Can they be like other kinds of stripper names? Like,
yeah, I had
there's
black,
a lot.
Black Velvet was one I thought. I thought I heard. Black Magic was another one. I don't know. They're like, I'm not creative enough. That's about all I got. That's all I can come up with.
Jeff commented that granite seems to be having problems breeding. I've heard that too, but I've heard it's gotten better. That they've lost it a bit.
It was an inbreeding problem. People were wanting a fast return, so they would just keep breeding them back, siblings of siblings of siblings, and then they were coming out with no eyes, kinks, or brains hanging outside of their heads.
That's true.
All kinds of problems they were having. But then Nick started doing more of the outcross. He started outcrossing them, and then he fixed a lot of those problems you would see with a lot of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's something you got to take in consideration too. Especially when you're dealing with morphs. You see it in ball pythons too, where sometimes you get a little, all these genes we work with are genetic defects. They typically are going to come with some sort of flaw to them. I mean, you see it with, spiders, with, like the wobble complex in general, and you see it with like the cinnamon stuff, a lot of the dark, whatever reason, melanist, adding too much melanin causes more issues or something,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jeff said he heard females are pet only. I've seen females breed.
Yeah, Nick has a few breeder females. Like I said, it was an inbreeding issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like I said, all it takes is a couple generations. See, back in the day, and this is going to be I remember when granites were new. The people who got them were ball python people. I remember very clearly there were ball python people getting into carpets in granites, and the albinos were new, and what they did was they just kept sibling the sibling, and they just kept it on this trajectory of just sibling the sibling breeding, or sibling the parent breeding, or something like that. And that was, from my understanding, was the issue, because it was just the ball pythons, it's just you do that and you just make a quicker, it wasn't it was the ball python people back then, where it was just breed a banana to as many females as possible. That was the kind of mentality. So they did the same thing with other things, when it came to morphs. So that was kind of the issues like granites and stuff like that would have, is from those reasons. But now, like I said, people like Nick's been out crossing them to wild collected animals and stuff, and you're starting to get better and better animals. Nick will even tell you how much percentage of wild type it is, or wild descendant it has. So,
Yeah, and RGI is launching like percent relatedness. So like you can get an inbreeding coefficient for any set of animals. Like you can compare. Right. So like we'll be able to make pairings in localities, to see if they're pure to begin with. We could find out groups and in groups and figure out if there have been genes introduced from something else. And then B, we could start breeding for just not being so fucking Targaryen that they end up fucking with 3 eyeballs by the end of the first generation.
Oh, man.
These are my dreams. Because that's the only way we're keeping Australia stuff going for long term, is like to start to treat it like an AZA breeding program. And be like, okay, this pairing is fine, but they are 20% exactly the same. Like, because they were cousins a couple generations back. So that's like the max breeding percentage we will do, or whatever. And
then, sometimes I wonder though, because I mean, is it inbreeding? Inbreeding's been I don't know. It's been going on for as long as creatures have existed. I mean, do you know 12,000 years ago there were exactly 7 cheetahs? So all cheetahs today descend from 7 animals.
Yeah,
that was 12. And you'll get problems with them too. I mean, there's zoos that have had kink tails, cross-eyed cheetahs, and stuff like that. But I mean, some species handle it better than others. And like I said, it's a lot of times when you add morphs to the equation, like if an albino rough scale pops up, that might become a problem, because you're not going to get genetic diversity in them for it to, that's probably a sign that it's going a little far. Same thing with like island boas too, if you start getting albinos popping out of those, or, because some of these animals, I mean, a lot of them didn't have a whole lot. I mean, do you think Savu Pythons had I heard NPR was talking about this, and I think one of the guys on there was Chris Salemi or something, and he was talking about AZA says it needs to be 700 unrelated individuals for good genetic diversity, but it's like there wasn't 700 Savu or a distant ancestor to the Liasis that colonized that Savu island that, you know, you got all this genetic diversity. Chances are it's probably a few of them. You know, same thing with the retics on all these different islands. You know, chances are it was probably a few of them. You know, especially the Maluku Island retics, for instance. You know, you got chances are they were an introduced species by humans, so their genetic diversity was probably however many they could fit on a boat and bring over to either was supposed to be food or something like that, or for skins that just got released. So, you know, some of this stuff, I
think the problem is like, it's not that we need to have 700. It's just that whatever heterozygosity we have in the hobby, we should not lose on accident due to a fire or something.
Right.
So like
exactly.
You know, if like this breeder over here living in a basement, he has a great basement full of snakes. He just doesn't send that many off. He turns out he has a bunch of alleles for I don't know, roughies or something. And congratulations, you did it. Like we should prioritize like pairing with his animals to get those alleles just to maintain heterozygosity. Because obviously, like the founder effect on an island, they could win or lose. And a lot of times we don't see the losers. We only see the ones that won.
And all it takes is one virus and it could wipe everything out. Because so that's the reason for genetic diversity, you know.
Right. So I think it's fine. Like I think we'll do it. I think we'll like grow a pair of either testicles or ovaries, and we'll all like look at each other and be like, we got to start treating this a little bit more seriously. Maybe get a registry, maybe at least like genetic tests for heterozygosity, and we'll just like take care of business. I believe it because we're adults, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the only problem with the Australian one though, or Australia, would have been getting the you know, you would have to do it in Australia and then have them send the information to the US, I guess, because you wouldn't really be able to get a bunch of the wild the genetics of the wild ancestries, and at least I wouldn't.
You wouldn't trust them.
You shouldn't be able to, anyways. You know, I guess you could do it, but you legally shouldn't be able to.
Right. All they have to do is like decide what like microsatellite DNA or mitochondrial DNA they think is, you know, diagnostic for the species. You know how hard, and that can be hard or whatever. They need to just PCR it there, put it in an email, and just email it to the US, and then we'll be like, okay, this peninsula in Australia is where these two subspecies meet. So like that mix is actually totally natural, but we were like officially like that is the integrate point, and then we'll be like, okay, we have it integrate, and we thought it was jungle all along.
I don't know. Hey, this might cause some. I don't know if you get a bunch of Australian listeners on this podcast, but do you?
No, they don't like us. We talk about
there we go. That's what I think it is. Even if we could do it, will the Australians want to do it? Because I tell you what, as soon as you talk about like, you know, have you guys ever thought about, you know, maybe signing petitions or talking to your guys' government or you know, and it's like, no, we ain't gonna bother doing that. No, we're not gonna bother doing that. I go, you know, I hate to make this sound all about money, but have you seen what people do with ball pythons here? Could you imagine if I guarantee you a lot of ball python people would hop on some Australian stuff if they were able to legally get it. You know, I'm just saying, you know, I'm not trying to twist your arm, but.
And even if you ignore the snakes, like blue tongues are a great happy little pet. They would fucking blow our minds with all their blue tongue shit.
You know, bearded dragons. You imagine, God, some of the bearded dragons would just love to have something they're not related to. You know,
right, that'd be nice.
Yeah, fucking, or you could actually get pure stuff too. You know, you wouldn't. You know, potentially could get pure stuff, but yeah, I don't know. That's kind of like the jab. I'll kind of like tell it like Australian people, like it's like, so you ever thought about, you know, talking to anyone, or I don't know, forming a group, or I don't know, something, you know, and they always just throw it under the rug and they think we're stupid for even asking. I go, okay, I'm sorry. I was just throwing it out there, you know.
They import and export a mega shit ton of tropical ass fish. Last time I checked.
Okay, they do, right? Okay.
Right.
Well,
So
and you can import birds, exotic birds too, I believe.
Yeah. Last time I checked, that was a non-essential pet. So they could definitely, if they really wanted to.
I'm sure they could figure something out. I mean,
Right.
I honestly like if I don't know if Australia's government is like money obsessed like other people are, but I mean, if you look at money thrown around in hobbies, I'm sure they would be quite impressed with what the reptile community would do to get some captive bred, whatever it is, you know. Not even talking about wild caught, just captive. And then they start complaining. Well, how are they going to know if they're captive bred? I go, just do lineages or chip them. Don't you? You know, you could either chip your animals like they do in Florida, or I don't know. There's ways you could do it. You're just being lazy, or you just don't want to. I'm gonna get in trouble. I probably shouldn't be saying that. You know, Australian people. I love Australia. Like out of all the countries, that's the one I want to visit at some point. But like I said, it's just I just find it funny. What's he talking about? Like potential import or export or whatever, and it's just like no, nothing. Crickets. Right.
All right. We almost did all the pythons. We only, I mean, I probably missed some, but like, all right, rock pythons. No for ball python people.
Yeah, that you were better off with berms. I'm not gonna lie, you'd be better off with berms probably. I mean, they're cool, but you know, they're just a different animal. Like they're just more nervous, I guess. I mean, some of them are pretty good. I had a buddy that he has my older pair, and he just recently got wrapped up by the female. So
oh no,
you know, and we seem to have. I don't know where our original stock came from when it came to rock pythons, but I think they came from a lot more. I'm sure they came from human populated areas, so we don't tend to have a lot of those giants that you would get out in more rural areas and stuff.
Eating antelope.
Yeah, eating antelope. So we generally have pretty. I mean, it's still a 10-foot, 12-foot snake that can put a hurting on you without a doubt. But you know, so
no ball python people. You're cut off.
Yeah, big snakes. Honestly, just big snakes are old Eugene Pizzette. Eugene, when his quote was, big. I think it was his quote. It was big snakes, little market, little snakes, big market, and that you know. There's so many quote. There's so many big snakes. Like when it comes to, retics and shit, that it's like, I just.
All right, let's talk about this. We're still in the big snake category.
Okay, or the Sri Lankans and Indians and stuff.
Yeah.
If you were, oh man.
I know you think it's cool, but you got to be honest to the ball python people.
I know that they're a little sassy too. They're not as bad. Mine aren't as sketchy as the rocks, but they're not far off. But they're not, believe it or not, the baby Sri Lankans here are chiller than the baby berms that I got the same age. The baby berms are a lot more sassy and were willing to bite me. But, I know people with other Sri Lankans that are a different story. So I wouldn't recommend them for a ball python person. If you wanted something that was Burmese-like, but didn't quite get as big as a Burmese or potentially as big as a Burmese, they're not bad. But and then again, they're you can't legally sell them too because they're an endangered species. So you got that whole thing too. So getting them in general is just really hard for the most part, unless you know someone who breeds them and willing to give you a pair, or gift you a pair or whatever,
Right.
You just
they are so cool, but tough.
They're just they're a lot of there aren't really too many. There really aren't too many big snakes the only two big, I guess you would consider them on the bigger end of snakes that I think wouldn't be bad for ball python people would be either olive pythons or Papuan pythons. And even them, they could still hurt you, but it's not as I don't, as long as you're not stupid with them, I guess. Because there was a guy, I think it was in Australia, who was killed by an olive python because it was a guy in the circus, and he had an olive python, and he threw it around his neck like a scarf. So he did it on purpose. It wasn't like the snake, purposely was starting to wrap him up. He literally did it himself. And, the guy's in front of hundreds of people, and that snake is nervous, rightfully so. And that snake, you saw, it was in 4 or 5 seconds, oxygen cut off. He fell. Bunch of people just stared at him like they thought it was a part of the act. He ended up dying because of it, because they waited like 10 minutes almost, I think, before someone got the snake off of him, and stuff. But that can happen with stuff like, if you're stupid with like carpet pythons, or a lot of those, even the boas. People think pythons are strong, but boas they're a whole nother animal when it comes to strength. I could tell you that and I put a hand on a python, and then a boa of equal size. The boa is just always, I won't say infinitely stronger, but it's pretty significant. You could feel the difference. Like an anaconda is just, I couldn't even imagine being wrapped by an anaconda. They might look like a deflated tire, but there's something about them when it's game on, it can be really dangerous.
Were we supposed to go over dry mark on Purple Church? I thought this was the python party. We'll have to do like round 2 for dry mark and boas or something. All right, last one, chondros. I skipped it on purpose because all ball python people secretly want to be chondro breeders. Oh no, the echo.
Oh, there we go.
We're back.
Oh, can you hear me? Am I still okay?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure my headphones. I know that can throw stuff off, but yeah. What were we talking about?
Oh, chondros. It's the last big category that people are jealous of and want to get into.
Oh my god. Yeah, I forgot all about chondros. Green pythons are cool. The problem is they don't do well they really seem to have a rough time when you feed them like a ball python. People like to get them, there's another unpopular, at least with chondro people, but like, if you get a chondro, if you follow the chondro book and you get them to 1,000 grams, you're going to, you might have some success with it, but it's going to be short-term success with a chondro. Chondros really shouldn't be much bigger than some of the Antaresia. They're relatively small, but most people just have that feed the breed mentality, so they just get them really big really quick. And unfortunately, I think that's why Nido had such a field day with a lot of the chondros, is because you had just morbidly obese animals, and then a virus just came through and so many people's collections die. It's a shame too, because there's been some really cool chondro collections, like the Kofiau stuff Chuck had, that stuff, a lot of that was wiped out by Nido and stuff like that. But
it's brutal.
And then
obviously Nido can affect all of these, but like if you break a snake hard and then add onto it a virus, it's not going to be one of those asymptomatic carriers that's fine. It's going to roll.
And then you crank it up to like 80, 90 degrees and it can't move. And it's, I don't know. I think the chondro people just got hit harder with it because of husbandry. They just try to keep it like a ball python on a stick. And they just didn't do well for them.
So should we recommend it to them anyway, so they learn to treat it like a different platform, or do we want them to like practice on a Dunn's python or something first?
I'm not gonna lie. It seems like if it's not going to be, I think the problem is I think it's going to be more popular. I'm not trying to say Justin dictates a market, but he's gotten chondros, and through the grapevine, I hear a lot of people looking into chondros because, not just Justin, but a lot of the bigger people are, I hear that, green pythons or something I want to get into, and there's nothing wrong with it. I think they're great animals, but like I said, careful with the people you choose to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the best people when it comes to chondros is Daniel Natouche. You know, he actually he's seen more of these animals than anyone, like more than Rico, more than Eugene and Trooper Walsh have. You know, I mean, he's seen all these in the wild, and he's written a few papers on them and stuff. So, you know, I mean, like I said, when it comes to understanding a species, I think it's really important. Do you research on them? Because, you know, another thing is, like, do you want to work with the pure stuff, or do you want to work with the designer stuff too? Because designer stuff are essentially just hybrids. A lot of them descend from back in the early days in the 70s when Eugene and Trooper were working with them, and they didn't know there was a difference between southern chondros, northern chondros, and
there's more difference between two green snakes on sticks that look the same than there are between, you know, the entire boa clade, and they look very different, but they're actually like
even the carpets. Look at the carpets.
Different. Yeah, carpets too.
Carpets look pretty different from each other, yet they're all fairly similar to each other genetic wise. So, but yeah, they I mean, even the emeralds. Look at the emeralds. I heard there's potentially, even in the emerald complex, there's potential splits there too. You know?
Yeah, it turns out like being like an arboreal tree snake sort of fixes you into certain like habitat types or whatever, and you don't spread as well as if you were like a sort of general semi-arboreal run around snake. So they have good gene flow, boas and carpets, like up and down the coast. But a little tree snake is like, fuck, I'm gonna stay here for the next 5 million years.
If they could just stick on, they could find one tree and it's good enough. It's like, you know, I'll just stay here.
Yeah. All right, we had a request for Timors.
We forgot about Timors.
I know. We're trying.
We're gonna. Oh my god. Timors are. If you like a boa-sized animal, they're very comparable to boas. I would say, like BC or not BC, Imperator and stuff. You know, I would say they're more skittish, a little more. They're like the hide, but it's one of those. There are very few people that are captively breeding them, and if they are, there's only like one. You know, F1s. There's not multi-generation, so I'm sure I think what you would work on with Timors is you would get the flightiness to go away, but then you would get a bunch of asshole snakes because now they're just not afraid of you, and then you try to find the tamer ones out of that group, and then you try to. You know,
right. But we should like draw lots. Like each person gets assigned like taming down something weird, and you're just like, this is your, you know, chainsaw with teeth.
And they're pretty like they like to poop on you too. I'll tell you that. I've had plenty of them. Whenever you go to put them in either their tub or enclosure, they'll like sling their tail and, you know, sling urates and pee on in your mouth and eyes. You know, yeah,
they're a great pet.
But
10 out of 10.
But like I said, who knows if we got you know, I'm kind of disappointed with the retic community. I go, you know, you wanted a comparable snake or something similar, you know, especially when you're talking about all these dwarfs and stuff, and you know, you have no interest in Timor pythons. I mean, they're just as unique, and they're probably prettier than, generally speaking, they're prettier on average, I think, than your like retics, as far as like different color variations. And, you know, you go from that pixel, that camo looking upper body to patternless towards the tail. You know,
it's the ombres back.
Yeah,
I'm all into ombres.
right.
Yeah, if you could like, and they still have a very cool head that like gives you a very like python-y feel without it being like colubrity feel. Like if that's what you're looking for in the snake, without like a huge size, that's pretty hot. And I guess we sort of mentioned Popwin pythons, not Popwin carpet pythons, for a second, but I guess that was the last. That's the last one. You guys have had enough.
Right.
We'll be back later for something else. What the heck?
But yeah, Popwin pythons, I think they're really cool species. I mean, you want to talk about a real, when we were talking about real tough snakes, you know, boas being real strong, Popwin pythons. This is from my understanding. I haven't even got to put my hands on Popwin pythons yet. But from my understanding, they're one of the strongest pythons. But it makes sense if they're eating other pythons like scrub pythons and stuff as a part of the diet, and each other. You know, it's the That's
how are they breeding them now? Just like keeping as many extras on hand as possible.
Keep a couple group. And the crazy part is, most snakes, when they eat something the same size as them or comparable, they regurgitate it, and you have 2 dead snakes.
Mm-hmm.
I just recently saw 2 very similar sized Papuan pythons together. Well, a female ate the male. She looked like an accordion. You would have swore up and down that snake was just going to regurg and die, but it digested the whole male. It just shed and just looked normal afterwards.
God, fuck.
How
right when they like scrunch up the other animal inside, and you have like the little bumps.
How did that not have a heart attack? Because I couldn't even. I don't know that how that. I think that might have been just an oddity. I don't think that would. There's no way that could happen consistently. But
yeah.
Is this?
I don't know.
What are they talking about here? 9 foot?
I think that one's Papuan pythons.
Yeah, I could see a raptor. I mean,
they have like a cool color.
They're very similar to like a lot of the Papuan stuff, like especially the carpets where they go through color shifts, from light to dark.
Mm-hmm.
They can probably go through more of an extreme look. I've seen some go from green to almost like a real dark olive color to bright green, not vibrant green, but real fairly bright green. And they have like a real bulldog look because they have that pug looking face, but
picture time.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, this is a very cool look, but obviously like if they eat each other constantly, it's a hard sell.
Make a breeding project out of it. It would probably be, I could tell you this, if you're able to do it, you would only have like maybe no competition if you can successfully do it. I only know this year, as far as I can think of, there was only one guy in Canada who did it. So as far as I know, I heard about a guy in Florida who breeds them somewhat, but he's one of those, like, you got to know someone to know him type of deal, so I don't know. There's always those closet guys. You just never know. Apparently there was a guy in Missouri breeding Boland's pythons that I didn't even know of.
Out of his trailer? Like, what do you...
not
in a van down by the river?
He had a couple years of success with 2 females. He's out there. He's starting to get on social media. Mark Miles is his name. And I go, this is going to sound bad, but he was probably that guy who would go to, he's probably not, but I almost feel like he could have been that guy who goes to shows and tells you how he bred Boland's pythons, like 30 Boland's pythons in his basement. And you're just like in tanks and you're just like, oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's what it takes is like a guy with tanks in his basement, like, because that basement magically has like the right coldness.
Well, what I'm hearing is success with a lot of the scrubs, like Boland's and all them, is multiple males, like interchanging them. Maybe combat. I think they combat them, but I think they're changing them out too. Like, you combat them, but then one male goes in, and then another male, you'll swap them in and out, kind of deal. And for whatever reason, seems, at least that's what I'm hearing. I don't know. I've never bred the scrub pythons yet, so I'm going to be disappointed if I have to go buy multiple males now, for my.
Do you run multiple males for Lyassus anyway? For you? Because like, it's so they can fight like white lip and stuff.
Well, I'd be nervous doing it with white lip pythons. I actually did it with carpet pythons. I got frustrated with the Darwin stuff, and I just go, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to throw 2 males in and just leave them in and see what happens. Well, I left them in, and they never did anything. They would just sit there. One might sit in the hide. Another one would sit outside the hide. They would kind of interchange. Then all of a sudden they weren't okay. And I walk in there and I saw a little blood splatter on the front of the window.
Oh no.
Shit, oh my God, what happened? And it wasn't too bad, but luckily pythons are pretty tough. He just had a few gashes because they got got a little too physical with each other.
Right.
Little kissing on the neck or something going on. But yeah, I was just like, I dodged a bullet there. I could have been really bad. But no, yeah, with Liasis is actually kind of interesting. You know, they did a study on Liasis. It was the three on the right around Timor. It was the Maclot, Dunai, and Savuensis. They wanted to see if mating could, I don't know, it was something like how much does mating differentiate between different species, I believe. And Macloti and Savuensis wouldn't combat with each other, or they weren't known to combat. And I've personally done it with Savuensis where I threw a few males in, and they didn't care. The only time they would care is if they smelled food, and then they would try to eat each other. That was the only time.
Nice.
But Dunai was the only one out of the complex that would actively combat or look to combat, you know.
So they didn't care, but did they also like breeding ball, or was they like?
I don't think they said. I don't recall anything about a breeding ball. I could be wrong, but I didn't. Yeah, I didn't see anything with breeding ball or said anything about them forming some sort of breeding ball. But yeah, they would.
Or a fuck nest, which is what I like to call it.
What was it?
A fuck nest.
Oh,
you got like tails everywhere and splooge, and you're like, I don't know what's happening. You guys stay in the hide.
With the Savu Pythons, they didn't really do anything. They would just, they just were chill with each other. They wouldn't hang out with each other, but they would chill with each other, you know, or chill
in proximity.
They just wouldn't have a problem with one another. But you know, as soon as you brought food in, though, I'm telling you, it was a whole different story. I had males wrap. It was females wrap males. You know,
right? Just because they saw movement and smelled food, and they were like, "This is on."
Food, saw
Let's
something
try it
in front of them, lost their mind. I mean, they just
God, I hate that.
Common sense. That's the one thing I'll tell you. You can breed. This is going to sound crazy, but with ball python, you could breed ball. You can even feed ball pythons in the same tub and rarely have any problems. I've never had that. You do that with almost anything else, you're going to have something's going to die. Or miss, it's not going to even be in there anymore. Like if you're in my case and the males are smaller, you probably just won't even have a male in there. You know?
Yeah, ball pythons seem like very acutely aware of what temperature is going on, and like I've never seen them miss strike and hit something that wasn't warm. It could be your hand or whatever.
Right.
But
right.
I've seen boas be like, "Oh, that's a rat," I think, and they'll bite the person they're breeding with in the cage because they thought I was giving them a rat nearby because it moved quickly and they have sort of just associated the smell and everything. And they're like, oh, something's moving nearby. So like,
what?
I don't feed shit that much in the winter. I'm just
so
like,
whenever
y'all are doing it. So no, thank you.
When you have that problem, especially with boas, I couldn't even imagine with a boa. What's your go-to on getting them separated? Just manhandle them apart, or do you?
Yeah, it's stupid.
I tried.
Then you end up getting like your hands cut because you're like, and they're smart enough. I'm just not saying a lot. Maybe they're not, but they're like, why are you touching me? Like I thought you were feeding me. Now why are you touching me? And so they'll end up like letting each other go, and they're both looking at me confused. Like this was supposed to be a rat time, and the one that's being eaten is like, hello. So usually it's like not even like an aggression point once you like break the brain process.
Oh,
but you end up still cutting your hands because you're trying to pull them apart. So I don't know the right way to do it.
Two carpet pythons do this. The female bites herself and wraps up the male.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to wiggle them loose. Well, she eventually lets go of herself and immediately starts trying to track your hand because she sees your warm hand. So while she's wrapped the male, she's like tracing your hand, and you're trying to like look at her, and then the male is still looking for a rat.
Right.
So the male's also trying to turn around and try to bite me too, and I'm just like, this is fucking ridiculous. I go, it drives me. I couldn't even imagine if if a Papuan python or like a big retic or whatever it was got a hold of each other, I would just, good luck.
Yeah. That's why you need friends.
Right.
Nearby.
Well, I remember Ryan Young was telling me about, try a mouthwash, and I had to do it one time with some white lip pythons, and I'll tell you what, they let go, but not as quick as you think. It's like I had to spray them so much with that, not Lysol. Did I say Lysol? I meant to say Listerine or something.
Yeah.
But I spritz them in the mouth with it, and I had to do it. I did it so much the whole cage smelled like it, like just a minty smell. And I go, this is fucking ridiculous. I got one squirt in the mouth of alcohol, and they would have, oh nope, I'm not doing this.
Do you have like water in your room?
Yeah, well,
like
no.
sometimes they're just not cold, but like cool water, and then they're like, ew, this is cold.
When my Savu Pythons did that, wrapped each other up, I dumped them in it was pretty deep. I mean, it was big enough it covered, it submersed both of them in there, so they, you know.
Right, you just need to like break the like brain cell loop of whatever they're doing, because I feel like they understand, but like since boas don't have heat pits, they're not as like geared up to temp. It's all about like the smell and the association of like the shape of tongs. They're like super aware of what a tong is or whatever.
I don't know. I've seen retics try to eat one of those snake catchers, little giant hooks. I've seen try to eat them and stuff.
That's great.
I will say you're right. Boas are a whole unique species. I've seen an anaconda try to eat its water bowl one time. I go, that was the most unique looking thing. And those were the snakes that Megan got, Megan Kelley. And I told Megan, I go, if there's one female you have to watch out for as far as cannibalizing, it's that double het female. I almost guarantee you, if someone's going to eat another one, it's probably going to be her. Just her trying to eat a cold, wet water bowl. And I was just like, maybe she's like thinking she's in the wild again, and she's like eating
ovum, like
something,
slugs.
Water or something. Like, I don't know. Maybe her little mind is going. I don't know. But yeah, I was just like, I couldn't imagine breaking up some of those big snakes. That, man, I don't even think if you had a friend, I mean, with some
if they're like motivated enough, there's so many like feet of snake there to like manage, and so.
Depending on the snake too, like I've seen one of the big anarthristics that Ben had, anacondas. It hit a 10-pound rabbit so hard it spun its head off. It just tore its head right off. I go, so if it hit a male just right, I don't think it'd be instant, but I'm sure it'd be pretty. Your male would have neurological problems, I'm sure, if he did survive, because or something broken in the vertebrae or something. Because I don't know. Like I said, people who breed anacondas and those big snakes is just that can be some dangerous work there. You know?
Anaconda's not for ball python breeders.
Yeah,
last time I checked,
it might be a fat, heavy snake, but it doesn't warrant a ball python person shouldn't want to have to keep that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, But back to the Papuan python thing. I don't think they're bad. I think they're pretty cool. Just be aware that if you did want to breed them, you might want multiple males. And for whatever reason, import males are hard to come by. Females, believe it or not, are the more common ones. And leads me to another FYI for a lot of the people out there, ball python wise. If you're going to get a rare species and you just see one male and you don't see a female, don't hesitate to buy that male, because if you don't buy that male and you decide, I'll wait for a female, and that male's gone, and then maybe a year later a female pops up, well, now you don't have a male, and it might be another couple of years, or you may never see another male, depending on how rare the species is. So that whole mindset, I had to kind of get rid of that mindset or tweak it a little bit when it came to that females. If you see a male, because prices aren't going to fluctuate usually as bad as it does with ball pythons when it comes to working with species. Sometimes you can get it every once in a while, but that's usually if you're dealing with something like retics or berms or something like that again has morphs. So it becomes you get more of that pyramid, situation going on compared to a lot of the species stuff. if you can, you get what you can get. Don't be stingy and hold out for a female and hope a male comes along at some point, because you
right,
can really
because like
shoot yourself in the foot.
Like you're 100% correct. Like the different sort of python species remind me of locality boa sort of economics, where like it's always like $500,
right?
You know, like because it takes a long time to grow them up, and not that many people are doing it, and they value their time and experience, and they're trying to do a good job. $500. So like that, like stability in pricing, I think might reassure a lot of people. We're like, damn. So I could just get $500 every baby. That would be like pretty good. I would have to like upgrade or whatever.
Sometimes though too, you will like, you can see more fluctuation too. You'll see fluctuation, but it's nothing like ball pythons. You're not going to get a $20 snake and then a $50,000 snake, you know, in the same species.
Right. Like quality still matters. Like selective breeding still matters. Right. But like the sine wave of the price point is just not as like peak.
There's popularity too. Like say with COVID, like when, I mean, Jesus Christ, I remember some like Savu Pythons used to be able to get for like $150, but now they're like $700 to $1,400 or something. And then Macklot Pythons used to be almost $50, and now they're around $400 to $500 depending. And then all these species jump. White lips, I remember used to get them for like $200 for like golds, and then blacks, you probably used to get blacks for like $500 to $800. Now I remember someone had some juvenile, this was a couple of years ago at Arlington, I remember someone had some sub-adult blacks that were $5,500 or something for a wild caught pair. And I'm just like, holy shit. And then don't get me started with Boland's pythons. That's Boland's python. See, I think that is when you're getting a little out there with your price. And now the Boland's people are going to they're going to realize that shit, I can't keep a bunch of 8 to 9 foot snakes and be stingy with my prices, you know.
Right.
The people who are buying those $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 Boland's pythons were ball python people that were making a bunch of money during COVID, and they could afford to spend fuck you money on those kind of snakes. But now that fuck you money isn't quite there for some people, now it's like, well, do I want to spend fuck you money on a snake that I may not be able to breed? You know, or
literally anything else.
Yeah. Or
you know, like
stuff or whatever.
Right.
So now you kind of get that, you know, you get that same kind of thing. And I hope Boland pythons come down. I shouldn't say that, but it's a reality. They $20,000 for Boland's pythons, you know, especially the people who are some of the people who are selling them for that. It's like, come on, man. If I'm going to I'm not picking up Boland's pythons and then get an extra something else that I know I don't want. Wink, wink.
Right.
Something, you know. Yeah. I just.
What's funny though is that Boland's. I mean, you saw the wild caught Boland's Nido paper, maybe.
No, I didn't see this one.
So they tested a bunch, and all the wild ones don't have it, so they're getting it. You know, at the exporter or wherever. Right. So they're fine all the wild. We just have to clean up the like continuity of the farm or whatever.
Here's the thing with the import stuff. And this is, if they just cleaned up import stuff and just tried a little bit, you know, I remember last time I went to Tinley, I had importer that I know just at the bar at Tinley tells me, I just got back from my room. I just got done getting a bunch of imports up from Chicago, brought them to the room and then rinsed them all off in the shower. And I'm like, God damn, where are we? I go, I couldn't help but cringe. Like I was sitting there going, it's so gross. But I'm just like, you know, if we did imports right, and even, you know, collect, like if collectors would collect maybe 10 of whatever species it was, and sold them for high dollar. Well, okay, let me back up. Go collect these animals, keep them in a proper facility, test them for, you know, treat them for worms or whatever it is, keep them in captivity for a little while, you know, make sure they're in good health, ship that 10 off to the US and actually ask for a reasonable amount, you know, more than just, I don't even know what are they getting some of these snakes for, like $1, couple cents, or I guess
right. If they could put in a little more work, they would have a better product, could command a better price, and then the LTC would like mean something because it would actually be 6 months
and you
with health checks.
This is the big one for you. Would you pay for an import that was well taken care of, that you can, you know, trust a bit more than something that looks like a raggedy piece of You look a little hesitant even when I said that, but
I would, because there's stuff that I want that I can't have. Like I want like velvety swamp snakes and Jaegers, like the little green snake, but you can't buy that. So like if someone like wormed it a couple times for me there and then gave me like the guarantee that it's lived and drank water and its kidneys aren't failing, that'd be pretty dope. I would pay for it. I'd pay $500 for a little shitty colurid.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. And you know, I know some python people who would spend a lot of money for certain species if they got like a good animal that they know wasn't, you know, or well, they may not know it's going to die, but a less likelihood of just rolling on them.
And, yeah, it's nice. You know, right? You're like, I'll take the rest of the risk from here, but you know, its kidneys aren't failing.
Right. Well, and then they, you know, we pay them. I guess for them would be a lot more top dollar. They don't have to take hundreds or thousands of these animals out of the wild, but we still pay them as much as if they did, and you know, get nicer quality animals, and we still get our genetic diversity, and they still get paid. Hopefully, even better. Like I said, if it's better taken care of, and don't quit trying to just flip this shit to the public. I think you could just.
Some people are doing a good job. Let me be honest. There are definitely people who are doing it. Like they have a facility there, facility here, they quarantine there, set them up. They're here. They might not be here for 6 months or whatever. They might not be all tested, but they at least had their first worming session.
Right.
And we know their kidneys aren't failing because they didn't die from the wormer.
Right.
Because it's hard on them. So we got past those 2 steps. Okay, $500. It can be $500 now because it's like you did way more than just slop that shit in a deli that's sort of got that like crust of like animal film that's been to hundreds of shows. Have you seen those crusty delis? I love them. They're my favorite.
Oh man, I think
they're my favorite.
I remember ones where you'd see like these little like different species of anoles. They just look dead. Like I mean, there was nothing. They look lifeless. Like I mean, they were in deli cups at a show, and you're just like, this thing is. It either is in the cusp of dying, or it was like it was almost like
mid death. It's the final death throes of a little anole. It's bullshit. Like people should like come up to those people. And, I don't know. I'm not recommending violence. I was gonna say punch them, but at least be like, get out of the fucking show. You're stinking up the place with your skank table with your skank. Go away.
And then the way they try to push that kind of stuff, like. Boy, I could tell you stories about the Samson guy, and he not so much the importing stuff, but just pressuring people into buying stuff they didn't need.
I know it's crazy. Honestly,
I was at a show, and there's this old couple that are probably about 70, you know, older couple. It was him and his wife, and his wife's this little petite thing, like really tiny, fragile woman, and just super nice too, and. They would hang out with Samson. Samson would say, "Hey, you want?" Because the gentleman who keeps the snakes liked retic. He liked messing with the retics, and I told him, "Dude, you want something that's similar to a retic? Try a carpet python. Try something. Don't get a retic because you're only getting older and the snake's only getting bigger. Like this isn't going to work." And what happens? This retic he got 12 foot long, and it bit him. And then his wife had to try to help him get the snake off. And I go, "Oh my God!" I go, Sometimes the reptile community just it makes me die a little bit on the inside when I see stuff like that.
Yeah, we're our own worst enemy, right?
It's
like a retic should almost have an application.
Yeah,
you're like. I'm buying a tiger with no legs. This is my cage. I have a shed out back for it to exercise in on the days when the weather's good. I don't know, like whatever. And you're like, I'm an adult.
Having a type of protocol with it. I mean, this isn't This isn't a snake you just throw in your kid in the backyard, go inside and do the dishes or whatever, and then hope,
they're both still there when you're done.
Use the guard snake or something. But yeah, no, I know people. Kara Norris, or I hope I'm saying her last. She's a blood python Curtis keeper. She actually has an application. You go online if you want one of her animals. You have to go fill out this application. And I go, man, I've never seen a retic person do this before, or any big snake, not just retics.
Right.
I don't mean just to pick on but like a rock breeder, anaconda, whatever, those bigger snake breeders. And I've never seen one person. I go, this is a great idea. Like I go, this is something that should be applied to everyone, and even, sometimes I've even thought about, I don't really plan on breeding my big snakes, but I thought about doing, I don't know. I was kind of tossed around the idea of doing some kind of like a apprenticeship type of deal, or not apprentice, but like almost like a maybe classes of some sort, maybe to prepare people to get it. But then I'm just like, I really don't want strangers touching stuff.
Then the liability insurance of like all these students, it would be fun.
Right. Well, it's just like, it's mites. I don't know if anyone's ever had mites on big snakes before, but I used to be told this by a good mentor of mine. He used to say, if there's one thing I had to tell or could tell you when it comes to big snakes is never buy adults. And there's a reason for it. And yeah, they usually come with more than just one snake, or more than just a
one
snake.
pet.
Yeah.
There's a lot of space under the scales.
Right.
And because the scales are so much physically larger, and the thing literally be under.
You have a bunch of them. Cleaning a bunch of retics that have mites is a real pain in the ass, because get the one end and get to the other end, you got to start the treatment over again because it took you that long to do it in the first place. So I feel like we're dogging big snakes right now. We're bad.
Listen, I'm an absolute big snake bitch. Like I think a lot of them are cool, but I have snakes that I don't think are that big. 6, 7, 8 feet. I'm still drag assing their bodies out of a big cage, putting them into a bin, and it's not even that big. It's still kind of big, and I'm like, damn, I don't know how people do this for like a 12-foot snake or a 15-foot snake that's mad at you, like really truly mad at you.
I've had a retic work me so hard that I like had to lean over the trash can and puke because it was just this snake.
Oh, you mean just like picking it up and trying to get it to go?
Picked it up. It didn't want to go in the cleaning tub, so it flopped onto the floor. As soon as it got ground on it, it turned around, looked at me, gaped its mouth, and it was ready to go. And I was like, uh-oh, I got to get you. Instead of getting it back in the tub, because now it wanted me, I had to throw it back in the cage, let her settle down, get her back out into the tub. And then it was just like, by the time I was done, I was like, oh God,
full body workout. That was like a burpee session.
Yeah. I was drenched. I was about to, like I said, I was about to start puking because I was like, you're working in 80 something degree temps. You're just like, oh, horrible.
Yeah, I like them. I don't want them to be illegal, but I think the more honest we are about big snakes, the more the right people will get them that are ready and fully prepared, and then we won't make them illegal because the right people will be getting them. But I've sold rodents, so I know exactly who's buying retics. And that's people in apartments. They have 10.
You live by one of the biggest retic breeders in the world. Hey, the funny part is when I went to Oklahoma, I guess I forgot I was in Oklahoma, and I went to the show, and everyone has Bob Clark and Will Banks shirts, and I go, oh yeah, I guess these are the heroes out
Surprise.
here.
They don't get any of the local shows though, because they don't care or whatever.
It was just local people. Well, like because Missouri, I never would see a Will Banks or a Bob Clark shirt, but when I went down there, as soon as I went down there, I would see quite a few of them. And then I saw legendary Jeff Byers walking around, and I was like, oh, I know, it's like Sasquatch. But well, let me know
next time you're coming down. We'll have like a weirdo. We'll like put tables next to each other or something.
You right? Yeah, because I've listened to your podcast. I go, Now I've been on an absolute kick with anime the last few years that I've. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Listen, did you watch the new Netflix special with like 100 things to do before you turn into a zombie? Something like that.
No, I saw it, but I haven't watched. Is it good? Is it worth watching?
Yeah, I like it. I don't know. I'm a sucker for. It's not like High School of the Dead with like the anime tits that like react to the machine gun fire or whatever, the rifle shots.
The first time I came across like those harem anime, I was like, "What the fuck did I just watch?" Because I
ever watched Monster Musume?
Yeah, that was the one I watched.
Yeah, you want to have sex with a snake now, don't you? You didn't know it. You didn't know it until you saw it.
Tell you what, first time I watched it, because like I said, I was on anime kick. I didn't know all the genres, so I start watching just a bunch of random anime, and I came across that one, and I was like, what the hell am I watching right now?
Is she not your favorite girl? The Naga?
Which one was?
Be honest. Which one is your favorite?
Oh, give me a minute. I really don't remember too many of the.
There's like the goo girl, the like harpy, small titty harpy. There's Naga, who's like your first girl, best girl.
If I had to pick one,
small titty harpy.
No, the spider.
Oh, so you're like a Dark Souls fetishist. Okay, that makes sense.
I may not be an emo type of guy, but I can vibe with it.
All right, nice.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to geek out, but I knew you were into anime. And
what do you mean, husband? There is no correct answer. Yes, I guess that's the whole point. Is you could like fantasize about picking any of them or all of them without like committing to any one. But listen, we all have taste, and that's fine.
What though? Do your research before you watch some of this stuff, because some of that stuff, if you go in there blind, and if you have people who are around you, it's some of the worst stuff to watch when it comes to stuff like that. It sounds like you're listening to porn. I'm not gonna lie. It's
right, but sometimes that's the whole point, you know.
Well, but when you got like if there's kids around,
all right. Right. Keep your earbuds in for some of them, because it's almost like some of them are like a joke and some of them are the whole point. But
I can't help but laugh. I get very childish when it starts going that bad. I go, "Ooh, this is
yeah." Fuck. Yeah, there's so many. Yeah, I wasn't planning on doing the December show me, because the summer one was the one that just happened. Was kind of mid.
Well, I think another thing too is we're starting to go through the seasons, like the show seasons, because like I did really well from tax season, from like February to I think towards April is when it started petering off. But then when summer hit, it was pretty dry for the most part.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I
haven't sold shit on Morph Market since April, like since the tax money ran out.
That's
I sold stuff at shows, but not like a ton.
Yeah, not a whole lot. Like Schaumburg was Schaumburg. The only thing that saved me at Schaumburg was other species. So, well, a few ball pythons, but mostly other species. So,
all right, let's round this puppy out. Should I vend St. Louis if I'm going to bring a mega shit ton of corn snakes? That would be what I would bring.
I don't know very many people with corn snakes, so I mean, it wouldn't be bad. I don't think you would.
9-hour drive though, shitty.
Well, and then
gentle corn snakes.
How much are the corn snakes too? Because I mean,
they'd be like you got $100 to $200.
Ooh.
So you'd have to move 20 of them to make it worth it.
I don't. If you're willing to wholesale a bunch of them to like Kick Brothers or something, if they're there, because they're like the. Well, you know how they are. They're the it and flip it type of deal. But yeah, they.
I would wholesale stuff if they would just not compete with me at my own show with my own animals. Yeah. Like if they had any sense and they wouldn't. So like I would sell to somebody who's going to sell to a pet store. Or Chinese people. I love them. Call me Chinese. The entire country of China and Taiwan. Please call me.
Speaking of that, at Schaumburg, I had this little Chinese lady was walking around. She was handing out business cards. I was busy talking to people. She was talking to my dad that was there. And after I got done talking to the people, I came over and I said, "So what did that lady hand you? Like, what was the card and everything?" And she goes, "Oh, she's a salesman or some. She sells rats from China or rodents." I go, "Oh, I found those bastards." Oh, these are the people who have been causing all these problems in the States.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I have some disgusting stories about some mice. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, people shipping containers of frozen mice from China. God knows what happened to them.
Well, yeah, and it's like you have to ship what was it? They sit on they come in a freight. They sit somewhere for like a month, I heard, and then they send them out to I don't know whoever. And I'm just like, what are you doing to get these mice so cheap? That's what I'm wondering. I'm like, what are you cloning them? What's the other one? You 3D printing these mice?
Oh, hell yeah.
Because, I mean, how are you making money sending, mice from China to here? And I don't know. And just some of the experiences that I've had, I'm just like, no.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you heard about like the bloods that were dying recently from like a bad batch of rats.
Oh, no.
And we had some blue poops in the Discord from a different provider and regurges. So it can happen even like locally grown stuff, just like a weird strains of shit get into the rats. So
my problem was the mice weren't decaying.
That's great.
No, like, okay, so this is the deal. I would feed a mouse, a snake wouldn't eat. I wouldn't know till 3 or 4 days later. I would just do general checks, like either water, look at the snake, whatever it is. The mouse is still there. Do
you think they were putting preservatives on or in the snake, just like a McDonald's hamburger? Or not the snake, the mouse?
Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of. Because, I mean, that's
crazy.
Lamp didn't bloat. I'm like, okay.
That makes sense. They fucking remember when they did the dog food thing in like 2008 where they doctored dog food protein counts with melamine plastic to make it look like, and they were like, whoops, recall the whole fucking country's worth of dog food. So I would be surprised anything. China, I love you. Don't hack me.
Yeah. Just the mice. It's the rodents. I had the problem with the rodents. When that happened, and then I was hearing, because apparently I'm just naive. I didn't know I knew they were getting rodents from other people, but I thought it was like other breeders supplying other rodent breeders. I didn't know they were getting them from Russia, China, places like. It would be
nice if it was even like a rodent breeding operation for lab rats here, because they have to hit a certain number of mice to like make their group, and so like there's nothing wrong with them. They just get like, they overproduced, and so you can use it that way. But yeah, the containers from China thing is a little much for me also. But that's a lot. Pretty much all the big ones. Yeah.
No, it made me start cranking up production a little bit more, and then look more into. I had to go find other people. Like, boy, is that hard.
Mm-hmm.
You breed a lot of mice and rodents or rats?
I used to, and sell it, and then I moved, and now I'm here, but I don't have like a dedicated rat building anymore. It's in like the snake room, so I'm like, I don't know if I want to scale anymore. But I probably should. I would. I don't mind rodents. It's just like I want to do the work.
Oklahoma, they get hundreds of rats and mice from you. I would rather do that than having
like frozen.
Well, I'll come and get them live and just gas them myself. I'm fine with that. Whatever happens, I'm not.
Well, shit, we'll work it out. I don't know if I have enough like overproduction right this second, but if
you're in Oklahoma, I'm sure you have enough land that you can get a building.
I, like an idiot, bought in town because I know. I mean, I could probably buy like 40 acres for literally $20 here, because it's not like anybody cares to live here. So it's still possible.
Oklahoma was one of those states. It was like, I'm not gonna lie, I always hated driving through Oklahoma.
There's nothing. It's fine. You're fine. You don't need to like it because it sucks ass.
You know what sucks with these reptile shows, and I was trying to do it, is when I go to these shows, I kind of wanted to go check out the zoo, but the zoo closes around the time the show ends, and I'm like, well, no, I don't have nothing to do. And it's not like
yeah, you gotta go herping or something. Because
Yeah,
up there you could go do like
it was a
Stillwater bulls and stuff.
herping. Dave, I think Dave was telling me Oklahoma had some of the best herping. He's outside of maybe the Southwest. He probably said Oklahoma was up there as far as some of the best herping.
Yeah, he was here over the summer, and I was like, "Did you get tricked into coming here?" Because, like, I was like, "The show kind of sucks," and he's like, "No, I'm gonna herp too, so it's like worth it. It's just like a working weekend for fun." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense."
If you can get some herping in, that's always a great thing. You know?
Yeah, like if it sort of halfway pays for the weekend or whatever.
Yeah,
it just like you brought a lot of high end stuff to this little rinky dink skanky show.
Right.
Right.
Well, Dave's high end, so.
Well, I'm talking $500 is high end here. I don't think I've sold a snake over $200 in the state of Oklahoma.
Well, when I sold quite a few stuff, it was all that like paycheck snake or whatever they call it,
Right.
that range. So, yeah, no, I believe you there. So, but yeah, no, I don't know if I want to. I guess I didn't even think of herping for some reason. I don't know. And I feel like a douche. And I remember Dave would tell me all about it too, and I just for whatever reason just didn't even think. I was so disappointed because I wanted to go to the zoo up there because there's a guy up there, Blake. I can't remember his last name, but he bred Hares for the first time. And
at that zoo?
Yeah, at the.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was just like, oh, I want to go up there and check it out. And the zoo was almost closed. And I go, well,
just kidding.
And you got, what was it? The Science Center right next to the zoo? Or was
Is there?
Isn't it the Science Center right next to the zoo?
I don't know. I live 2.5 hours west, so I don't
say it was fucking huge. Whatever.
Yeah, that'd be fun. You can come up early on Friday and go to the zoo.
We came in late.
Okay.
We were just late. We were just like right at the
with the dinosaurs and shit. I'm in.
I think I don't remember what it was exactly, but it was ginormous building right next to the zoo. Is that
Science Museum in Oklahoma? I'll go anywhere where there's dinosaurs.
Oh yeah, right.
Where's
that? You got an outside picture of it right out? I would say because that's the only way I think I could. Well, location I guess is right next to the zoo.
Apparently, my internet is sad.
Oh man,
it is right next to the zoo.
Okay, so that was all right, good. I didn't, but yeah, no, that place looked cool. But like I said, didn't have time to do anything because the show, and now I was disappointed going to the show.
Well, how many hours is it to there for you?
It was about 9 hours. Roughly.
Were you depressed while you were here?
No, I
don't know.
We went to a steak place out there, like old Western looking place. They had like a upstairs bar. While we were waiting, we went up there.
Mm-hmm.
When I go to places like Tinley, a lot of those places, I guess I have watered down tequila. But I went to have tequila there because I just do straight shots. I'm one of those guys. If I'm going to catch a buzz, get it done and over with real quick because I don't like the taste of alcohol, but I like the buzz.
Right.
So I go in there, take 2 shots, fell down the stairs. I don't know what it was. I think it was because I didn't eat the whole day because I was it was right after the show, so didn't really eat, just stood there all day. And then we tried to go to the zoo, so we did just a little bit of walking. And then we went to that steak place, and I got just 2 shots, and I stumbled right down the stairs. I was like, wow, this is embarrassing.
Right. At least you got the good stuff from the tequila supply. All right. I think we pretty much did it. We did a great job. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me.
We will redo this whenever. So I should maybe do St. Louis if I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just corn snakes or.
I mean, I have like a litter of like VPI boas, but boa market's weird. Like people either like really into it or not.
I think.
And then I have like shitty ball pythons.
I think the boa market might take a little bit of a swing a little bit. I'm not gonna say it's, and I'm not a boa guy, so I could be totally full of shit. But like I said, I'm hearing and noticing more other ball python people wanting to try something different. And boas are they're kind of almost that next step for most people, because there are a lot of good boa breeders out there. And
there's a lot of morphs too. If they want to, they can morph out.
Yep. So it's kind of like that nice transition, because hog noses, they're small, but they have the regulation and stuff with some of them. So it's kind of one of those that might deter people from doing it. I've heard people talking about the super dwarf stuff too. And then obviously the green pythons and stuff. But I think boas will probably take more of a, uptake than the other ones will. Cause I think some of that other stuff people are going to either have a rude awakening with, or, not to say you can't with boas either. I know plenty of ball python people absolutely wreck a boa. Wreck a boa.
Right.
Feed it just like a ball python every 4 days or whatever.
Yeah, they need to treat them like a carpet, but so that's why you want to train them in advance. But I think a lot of python people don't have the patience for a slow growing species to wait for it to breed each generation time. They don't want to wait 5 years. So
and I guess I just don't get that mentality, because isn't that fast burn? Doesn't that get frustrating after a while when you want to race to something so quickly, and then it just goes, it's like you want to try to hit the pinnacle before anyone else does, and then it just crashes, or it drops down too much, or it's, or it's not what you thought it was, or something like that.
And ball pythons, they're so high fast turnover. You never get to like your males.
No,
it's not fair, but I like my male boas, and I get to breed them for 10 years because they're still valuable. Because I don't have to keep them forever, but you know what I mean? There's no way I could ever fall in love with a male ball python. Buy in 2 years or less if you're lucky.
Okay, that's cool. That's neat that the boas are still like that. I kind of thought the boas wouldn't be as bad, but I figured they would be similar to somewhat to them.
A little bit, but it's
depends on the individual.
I've had if they're good quality looking, and they're gonna upgrade kind of skanky sort of more females, they have Pastel Dream lineage or Monster Tail lineage or whatever, and you're just making popping heads off of him, and he's a clean no head albino. That's what I've been using my Key West Motley for. He is fire. I've had him for 5 years. I don't ever need to sell him because he's living in a CB70 and doing outcrossing work, which is what I need. So I'm
do you notice a percentage? I don't know if you keep track of percentage, how many people buying your boas are pet people or breeders? Do you keep track?
I think it's mostly pet people, because they're that's just not a ball python.
It's interesting. Huh.
So I can sell $100 to $150 just normal, or a cheap morph hypo that doesn't matter all day. That's usually what I sell if I bring them to a show. But I'm tired of looking at ball pythons, so I keep taking the shows to be this is what I have to sell, so I need some of you stupid people to come buy them. Well, I'm so backed up. So I'm saving boas for a show where it matters, because they'll sell eventually. Because
I guess it's just the business mentality though too. Because I noticed with carpet stuff, I've sold recently. I've sold a few carpets. Some were just straight pet people, but then others you notice they were if it breeds, it breeds. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Or, I'd like to breed it, but if it doesn't, it's a really cool looking thing. It's a lot less emphasis on the breeding, or it's
right. That's probably it. Someone's I just want a boa. If it breeds in 5 years, I don't care. But so they'll ever rarely come to the table for a normal boa to be yeah, I need this to move my projects along.
Yeah.
Ever. I've never even heard it. Although I've seen very nice selectively bred boas at shows here, usually from the vendors from Texas coming up.
Oh.
And I'm sure someone wants to engage with him at that level, but most of the clientele is not nuanced in that way. So that wouldn't be why they would be buying it.
Well, that's
in my opinion.
That's exactly what I noticed with the ball pythons when it came to the Oklahoma show in particular, where it was just people they didn't like I said, they didn't follow Justin. They didn't, or they might follow Justin, but they don't want to be Justin. So they don't have that same mentality. So, and then if everyone there is 90% ball python people all selling leopard double head clown puzzle or double head pied puzzle, or a puzzle clown, or I don't mean to put puzzle, but like or a pied clown or something, no one's gonna care because it's still the same snake, just different genes that they don't even know what it means.
Right. Know? It's a very like it. I don't think it's because of like the people who share the state with the people in the state, but like you would think they would have. We have to like figure out how to teach a community to be a community, and I feel like you have that in like the Northeast because it's older, like an older community. They're old timers, but I don't feel like this area locally has been taught to be, a nuanced customer by the legacy sellers in the state. It just feels very like it's a pet show. It needs to be $80. Doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
Which is fine. That's fine. But like, you got to have the kind of inventory to be able to sell enough to make it worth it to come here.
Right. And who knows? Like I said, the people at the shows they could have just been there to hang out. Cause like Oklahoma had that vibe where everyone knew each other, kind of, at least the vibe when I
it depends. It depends. Like I've had like brand new vendors show up when I'm doing like my second go around, and I'm like, are you trying it out too? Because they had like a big fuck up with like El Reno, like because that location was bad for Show Me, and then he'll admit it. Mickey will admit it. It was just like a dud location. They couldn't get people out there. It was too far away from town. It was like halfway into the next county, basically, at a fairground. And so I think it like burned some bridges with some vendors that would have kept going. So if it stays good and it's on a trajectory, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know anything. I would have been Arlington. I just got to kill a bunch of people before I can do that.
Yeah, don't try to fool these people. They know you better than that. You're, like I said, you know a lot more than you let on. You just being modest over there.
No, I've never learned a single thing in my entire life.
Oh God. Okay, here we go.
There we go. All right, sir.
Okay,
you did it. 3 hours, 16 minutes. We're winners. You're especially a winner. We made it. I would love to do this again for like boas or weird colubers. I don't know, whatever. We'll do it.
I'd like to see weird colubrid people.
Oh my God, they're so weird.
You'll have to find old people. I don't know too many new people. It's usually the older guys.
Yeah. We got to go into the basements, get our money orders ready, and fill them out.
Oh, man. Yeah.
All right. Let's wave goodbye to the beautiful people.
All right.
Bye-bye, everybody.